Testing, testing. Everything seems okay. Okay. Okay, well, it's Monday night. It's time to play, or actually tonight, not going to be playing Soulherder. Just going to be doing some replay analysis. I had a really great league last night. Just going to talk about the deck for a few minutes. Then we're just going to go through the 5 matches from last night. Try to do our best to assess whether I always chose the best line, whether there would have been better lines against certain decks in certain positions. Try to figure out whether certain cards are not really pulling their weight. I guess, well, I've made a few changes since the last time I saw you guys, so just let me sort of touch on those quickly. For those of you who haven't really been paying attention to Modern in the last week, there's kind of a new bogeyman in the format. It's this Teferi's Trickery card. People are playing it with Cascade spells, and ultimately it just, if the opponent gets to resolve... no, sorry, said Teferi's. Is it Tybalt's Trickery? I think I might have said that wrong. Tybalt's Trickery, if they get to resolve it, basically they cheat Eldrazi into play, that kind of thing. So typical answers against combo decks are very good against this combo deck. Counter spells are going to be excellent. Teferi's actually quite good because they're using Cascade, and Cascade is trying to cast a spell while there's already another spell on the stack, and Teferi disallows that. So I've made some adjustments basically to strengthen the matchup against this this Tybalt deck, because it's kind of funny calling it a Tybalt deck because they don't actually run Tybalt, the Planeswalker. They just run this new card called Tybalt's Trickery, which was supposed to be a cheesy red counter spell, but is just being used to counter the opponent's own spells. It's totally not what Wizards intended for it to be, but it's being sort of broken beyond like what has been done before, I think, with breaking other cards. It's just like totally not what it was designed to do. Anyhow, it's all over the place. I've seen it twice already in just playing the last couple days. People all over the Merfolk Discord have been saying they've been seeing it nonstop. So what did I do? Basically, I only had 2 forces in the main deck with 1 in the side. I brought the 1 from the side into the main, actually added the 4th one. You're just really going to want to have a force in the opening hand. If you do, it's just going to increase your chances of winning against that deck by 75% or something. Still have the 2 cryptics, still have the 2 time warps. I did trim the blade splicers to make some room for this stuff. So 2 forces added, and I added a 3rd Teferi. I used to be on 2 Teferis, now I'm on 3 Teferis. Obviously, cards like Force of Negation and Teferi are towards the top of like the power level in Modern, and so shifting away from Blade Splicers towards these cards probably going to make the deck overall a little bit more powerful, but definitely shift it in more of a controlling direction. And less of kind of a fun Timmy direction, just making 1,000 3/3 golems. Hey DV Neil, welcome to the stream. Really good to see you. Hope you're having a good Monday. So yeah, let's see. Made those couple of changes. Everything else pretty much the same. I was just mentioning a moment ago. I'm going to waiting basically until about 7 o'clock. We've got maybe 4 minutes left. Talk about the deck, talk about what might be on the chopping block, what's been performing really well. A couple of other sideboard adjustments I made. I added 3 Deafening Silence. This card says each player can't cast more than 1 non-creature spell each turn, so it just kind of shuts off Cascade trying to hit non-creature spells, because they're going to cast Violent Outburst, and then they're going to cascade into Tybalt's Trickery, and it's not going to let them cast it, right? So Deafening Silence is a card you can get down on turn 1. It's probably just going to win you the game. These combo decks can't really afford to run much in the way of interaction. Some of them I've seen are running like a sideboard package that effectively boards the combo into like a Titan deck, like a Valakut deck or something, a Field of the Dead Titan deck, and that actually seems... I've heard different opinions on this. One guy, I think it was Bishark in the Merfolk Discord, he's run up against this Trickery deck a few times already, and I think he's just been getting crushed by it despite having like 4 forces in his deck. He thinks that he would rather see this version that boards into Titan Shift, because it's slower, because they're not running in the main deck like all of these Simian Spirit Guides and Chancellor of the Tangle and things like that. So what they're looking to do effectively is get to turn 3, cast a Cascade spell, and effectively just win the game. I think if they resolve their Cascade spell on turn 3, this particular build that boards into Titan is winning something like 80+%, if not 90+% of those games where they get to resolve the Cascade spell. They're hoping to come up only against non-counterspell decks, basically. So he would rather see that version where they're giving him to turn 3 to draw a bunch of interaction, in game 1 at least. But then in games 2 and 3, you're going to be playing against a Titan deck, which for Merfolk has always been difficult, and obviously for Soulherder, it's also a pretty difficult matchup. I personally would prefer to always see the sort of all-in combo version, because first of all, I'm prepared for it with a bunch of forces and Teferis. Second of all, they have a bunch of garbage that they can cast off of Tybalt. They can cast Simian Spirit Guides as Grizzly Bears. They can cast Chancellor of the Tangle. Probably the worst for them, and this can also happen in the other version, is Tybalt's Trickery can hit another Tybalt's Trickery, and at that point, the only thing on the stack is going to be the original Tybalt's Trickery and then the new one on top of it. Since it's a counter spell, the new one has to target the existing one, and then I think what happens is, this hurts my brain. The one on top counters the one on the bottom. I don't know, guys. It just doesn't work. It fizzles. I don't want to talk too much more about Tybalt's Trickery. But anyhow, it's approaching 7. This evening, you might have seen in the stream title, I had an excellent league last night. Went 5-0 for the first time in a long while. I've been playing queues for like a month and a half because I was on vacation. Didn't really feel like sitting down to play leagues. But now that I'm back in New York, I've been jumping into a bunch of leagues and just been having so much success with this build. My last 4 leagues have been 4-1, 3-2, 4-1, 5-0. So pretty solid results. There have been some really epic games coming down to like just a minute or 2 left on the clock, or maybe I stabilize at 1 life. Super exciting, and there were some of those great games in the 5-0 last night. I thought it'd be an excellent opportunity to show off a little bit about sort of how the deck has been working, and also get some feedback from you guys about plays that I might have missed. You know, for those of you who have been with me on a bunch of previous streams, you may have caught one of my replay streams in the past, and I find them to be very, very productive because you guys are all super smart, and just going over matches a second time with like a fine-tooth comb, really analyzing what the possibilities were without the pressure of the clock, the benefit of hindsight, all of that stuff just can only make us into better players, teach us more about the deck and about which cards are actually doing a really good job and which ones aren't really pulling their weight. I know McDerp, who may not be in the stream with us yet this evening, has his doubts about Of One Mind. This card for me has just been excellent. I quite like it. For those of you guys who were with me, I think 2 weeks ago, I believe we went 4-1 on that stream, if I recall correctly. Maybe it was 3 weeks ago. We played against Storm, drew this on turn 2 with a snake and a hierarch out, drew 2 cards. I think like there was a counter spell in there, and it just really sort of turbocharged what we had been trying to do, getting those 2 powerful cards into our hand on turn 2. Yeah, DV, I'm on the same page with you, so very interested to see, though, like in the replay, if there was something that we could have had better in those spots than Of One Mind. Like, for example, maybe like a 4th Teferi or a 3rd Skyclave. Like some people, I think McDerp, the one who has the objection about Of One Mind, potential objection, is very, very high on Skyclave. And I am as well, but he's taken the opinion, the position that any deck that's running Skyclave should be running 4 of them. And in my experience, I don't know, I haven't really found that to be the case. I have tried running, I believe, up to 4 of them, and you just play decks like Tron, where it's a really bad draw. You have games where you're not hitting your double white, and it can be a little bit annoying. Maybe you don't have triple white, so you can't like ephemerate it, and it's an excellent card. But it has its place in my deck, and it's not as a 4 of. Game 1, I'm looking to ramp. We've got Hierarch, Oracle, Uro, all trying to get more mana onto the board. And then we're just trying to sort of... All right, 6 months. Did you guys hear and see the announcement just then for the subscription? Lonely Isotope, thanks so much for the subscription. I've been trying to set up my Twitch a little bit more effectively with donations and subscriptions. All right, that's awesome, because last week I don't think it was working so well. All right, so anyhow, I think 2 Skyclave is great. We're jamming up the board with all our little snakes, ghost blocking with Eternal Witnesses and things like that, gaining life with Uro, just treading water until these powerful spells come online and we can start to sort of lock the opponent out. And so Skyclave to that end has felt fine as a 2 of. We've got the Ephemerates to get multiple sort of triggers off of them, and it's been great as a 2 of. But, keep your eyes open when I do the replays this evening. Maybe, you'll see me draw an Of One Mind, and you'll be like, hey, if that was a 3rd Skyclave apparition, that would be the nuts right now or something, all right? So that's the goal. We're looking for possible mistakes, possible inefficiencies, inaccuracies that could improve my play and hopefully improve your guys' play. All right, so, oh my god, Isotope, yeah, Skyclave Apparition is at its absolute best in decks with Ephemerate in it, and that's just, that's an obvious objective fact. The card is busted as it is, but if you get like a free trigger with no token being given to the opponent, like I've had lines where Skyclave targeting Luris, like ephemerate it and then blow up, I don't know, like something like a 1-drop or 0-drop even, and then, I'm getting rid of 2 important permanents, giving the opponent nothing, and if they finally kill Skyclave with the get back a vanilla 1/1, and people try to remove Skyclave, and I'll ephemerate it again and blow something else up, it's pretty busted, and it played a big role in this league, as you guys will see. All right, so without further ado, it is 7:05, ready to jump into this league. Well, the league replay. Now, my hope is that you guys basically drive the car tonight. Like, I'm going to be showing you, the board state, obviously, but I want you guys to tell me what land to play. I want you to tell me what spells to play. I want you to yell at me if you think I did something wrong. So, Isotope, are you saying that you like the revised snow art, like with the frosty stuff around the bottom? So my initial impression was that these things are pretty fugly, but I kind of like how they jump out at you. Snow permanents are important as like a unique mechanic in the game, and the lands, I could see the argument that they blend in with other lands, and so if there's an Ice Fang on the board and you're playing paper, or even online before they were distinguished like this, the opponent doesn't realize you have 3 other snow permanents. Now I wonder if they reprint Ice Fang, if it's going to look like this. Like, I think Ice Fang is sort of objectively worse looking here. They just desaturated everything. I don't know, maybe you guys like this one too. But yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to warm up to these snowlands, not to make a ridiculous pun. But yeah, Ice Fang, I don't know. I kind of like the regular yellow one. I think they could do, if they're gonna iceify or snowify the art of this with the frame, I think they need to put a little bit more workshopping into the actual aesthetic, because not as effective as the basics, I think. Anyhow, let's get into the game. So again, I want as much feedback from you guys as possible here. So we're playing against Whitco02. First of all, keep, mulligan. What do you guys think? Playing against an unknown opponent. There's a lot of difficult decisions in this deck. Lot. Like, every decision is difficult. So the very first decision of the league is a difficult decision. We've got 3 lands, and we've got spells that we can cast, but we're not casting anything on turn 1 or turn 2 as things stand. All right, we've got Neil's opinion. He says he would mulligan. Do we have a second opinion? Is this a clear mulligan, or is it like borderline? Obviously, if we knew what the opponent was playing, it would color our decision significantly, I think. See, that's fascinating. So Isotope is saying Uro is good enough on its own that this might be a keep. Neil says it's borderline, says he would mulligan. So for me, against an unknown opponent, this is a mull every time. Again, unknown opponent. If it's burn, it's a snap keep, because all we want to be doing against burn, basically, is casting Uros. Obviously, getting down bodies to potentially like chump block and gain us some time is kind of relevant, but Uro is a number 1 card against burn. That's funny. But knowing this build in particular, what I'm looking to do in the early game is absolutely like not what this stuff is. I want to be either hitting Hierarch or a Snake, ideally both of them, to actually get something going in the early part of the game. If we're on the draw, the opponent goes, we go, we do nothing. The opponent goes, we go, we do nothing. The opponent goes, we go, we finally do something. That's not really a good way to start a modern league, or any match in modern. So the opponent mulligan to 6, I mulligan to 6. So now, pretty awkward. Do you guys keep here, or do you keep mulliganing? This might be a long stream. This is a lot of decisions to make. All right, Neil's on the mull plan. Isotope's on the mull plan. I'm pretty sure I was on the mull plan as well. I think we have to wait for the opponent to make a decision here since they're on the play. They kept 6. I mulligan to 5, starting the league on a mull to 5. I think at this point it's clear that we've got lands and spells, and we sort of have to keep at this point. So now the question becomes, what are we going to bottom? Obviously, we're keeping the 2 lands. We're definitely getting some blue with this Windswept Heath. Cryptic is probably a little too heavy. Anytime you have a double of a card, when you're mulliganing pretty low, you typically want to just pitch the double. In this case, I think one of the forces is a pretty clear choice. But as I mentioned in the sort of the build up to this stream, there is this crazy combo deck running around. So I don't think we want to bottom both forces, even though force puts us even further behind on card advantage. I think it's a nice card to have against certain matchups in the open air. So definitely pitching Force and probably putting Cryptic on the bottom. Is that what you guys are all about? Cryptic and Force? Excellent. So we're all on the same page. I guess that those choices are pretty clear. So let's continue. Yeah, Cryptic is crazy hard to cast. That one's definitely an easy choice. So then I guess that does leave just a pretty obvious decision of getting rid of one of the forces. So Pillar of the Parents, and I was immediately sort of gratified as how I mulliganed to this Force of Negation, because this card is only seeing play right now. I guess it sees play in Niv, but really Niv's not the hot thing right now in the format, so this is pretty clearly... so we drew a Snake. That's always nice. It's another blue card, if nothing else, to pitch the Force, and if it is in fact Tibalt, then I mentioned before that Teferi is kind of the nuts, so let's see how this develops. Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask you guys which land to play, but tapped Temple Garden seemed fine, only because I didn't really want to crack my fetch anyway here. I'd like to draw a third land. All right, opponent with the second pillar. They exile a Simian Spirit Guide, and it looks like they're off to the races here. And so for those of you unfamiliar with this deck, you can see a little bit what it's up to. They've got, I think, 4 of Ardent Plea, 4 of Demonic Dread, and 4 of Violent Outburst. So they've got 12 Cascade spells, and the only thing in most builds that, well, in any build that the Cascade spells can cascade into are... Tibalt's Trickery. It's a 2-drop instant. I've seen a build, actually a guy on the Soulherder Discord named Walked Airplane was streaming, I think yesterday or the day before, and he's trying Bloodbraid Elf, which the only thing that can cascade into is other Cascade spells. So you're getting a nice attacker, potentially getting it buffed with Exalted. This is sort of an alternate win condition if the opponent manages to shut down a bunch of their Cascade spells. So let's see how this goes. We're gonna sort of try to advance this. Here's the Tibalt's Trickery, just to show you guys the card. It's really confusing. Counter target spell. So when Wizards design this, they're totally thinking this is going to be used against the opponent, not to counter the caster's own spells. Choose 1, 2, or 3. Now this choose 1, 2, or 3 thing is a little bit nonsense. Its controller mills that many cards. And the milling doesn't have anything to do with what ultimately resolves. I think it's just to try to prevent people from stacking their decks and then casting the stacked card with Tibalt, right? So choose 1, 2, or 3 at random. Tibalt is crazy and does random things. You mill that many things, and then what does it say? Then you exile cards from the top of the library until you exile a non-land card with a different name than that spell. Now, what is that spell? It's like you have to be like, what? So in this case, it's the spell that they're countering, right? It always is, and so it's Ardent Plea. So if they exile stuff and they hit another Ardent Plea, they're just going to keep going until they hit another spell. Then they put the exiled cards on the bottom of the library in a random order. So the only things that they can hit off of Tibalt's Trickery are other Tibalt's Trickeries, which fizzles the whole thing, or they can hit other Cascade spells, which will always hit Trickery. And then eventually Trickery is going to hit Emrakul. Some builds run multiple Eldrazi that have cast triggers, because notice that Tibalt's Trickery actually says that they can cast the spell. It's not saying like you can put that permanent onto the battlefield or something. So Emrakul, when you cast it, you get an extra turn. So if they hit Emrakul, they get to untap again. They get to attack, Annihilator 6, pretty much lights out. If they cast the old Ulamog, you destroy a permanent, that kind of thing. All right, so Tibalt's Trickery, we're definitely going to counter this spell. And I just pitched Uro because Uro doesn't really matter in this matchup. So that happened. Ardent Plea is going to resolve. Unlike the other Cascade spells, this is actually a permanent. So when it resolves, it goes to the battlefield. But they're probably not going to be attacking me. All right, so we're looking to draw land. We hit a Hierarch, and so since I know what's going on now, well, why don't you guys tell me what the play is here? Should I crack the Windswept Teeth, play Oracle, maybe hit another land and get Hierarch on the table, or just play the Hierarch? And while you guys are thinking about the play, I should mention that down below the stream, I recently added a donate button. If any of you guys want to support the stream, that donate button will take you straight to a screen that will let you type in a message and choose your donation amount, all of that stuff. So DV Neil says play the hierarch to guarantee. Yes, and so I've got two people saying hierarch, and that was my idea as well. Like Teferi, as I've said a few times now, is super duper crazy good against this deck, and so we want to guarantee it, and we also kind of want to draw more lands. So let's go ahead and play the hierarch, and we may crack the Windswept Heath. We have the sort of haymaker in hand at this point. You know, the percentage points on cracking the Windswept Heath are sort of approaching negligible. So we're hoping the opponent doesn't have another Cascade spell. They only have 3 cards in hand, but they're tapping. Now, a Forbidden Orchard is a rainbow land that gives me a like a spirit or something. Yeah. Looks like another Ardent Plea, which is pretty scary for us because, you know, it can hit an Emrakul. So we're hoping that when this Tybalt's Trickery comes off here, that it doesn't hit Emrakul. So what happened here is they cast it targeting their Ardent Plea, and they milled Chancellor of the Annex. I guess the random number that they chose was 1, so they milled 1 card. No, they milled 1 card and they countered the Ardent Plea. So now they have to resolve the rest of Tybalt's Trickery, which hit another Cascade spell, which of course hits another Trickery. And now this is always so scary. They got a triggered ability from Emrakul. This is not Emrakul being cast. It's Emrakul got milled, so it's going to shuffle its way back into the grave into the deck. And what they actually end up casting is Chancellor of the Tangle, obviously significantly worse than the biggest Eldrazi Titan. So this is the version of the deck that's kind of all in, looking to play Simian Spirit Guides and Chancellor of the Tangle. Now, this clearly puts us in a pretty good spot. You guys want to start typing out like what your line is here. I mean, it's basically obviously play Teferi and the opponent probably scoops. If there's any other nuances you guys want to suggest. This stream is all about you guys and hopefully discovering some stuff that I didn't see during the actual matches. Yeah, Teferi Bounce seems pretty strong. We did draw a 4th land. Teferi Bounce, put that thing back in his hand. And yes, very good. DV Neil. Yes, watch him resign, exactly. Good call. So that was a really solid game 1 against, as I mentioned, the bogeyman of the format right now. We did counter 1 Cascade spell, and we almost got served by a second one. Unfortunate for the opponent, they hit a card that they'd rather not. And we had, in a mulligan to 5, 2 excellent pieces of interaction against this crazy deck, partially due to the way that I tweaked the deck before this league. I maxed out my Force of Negations, and I upped Teferis to 3. If you guys ever want to see the deck as I'm going through this, you should have Cardboard live over on the side. All right, so let's go ahead into the second game here. See if the opponent did any better in this one. All right, so what do we got? Keep, mulligan, what do you guys think? Some of this stuff's going to be pretty obvious. This is an excellent Soulherder hand. So it's but then again, hang on a second. I forgot for just an instant that we're playing against this crazy deck. So can we afford to keep this traditionally sort of very powerful hand against this particular deck? Now the opponent's mulliganing to 6. And we get the benefit of that information before we have to make our decision because they're on the play. Isotope says mull. Neil says against a blind opponent, keep. But against this opponent, think we should mulligan to hate. I believe I'm with you guys. I believe that I mulliganed. But it's possible that I can't remember exactly. There's so many decisions made in this league. Opponent mulligan to 6. I mulligan as well. So we're on the same page. At this point, as I'm mulligan to 6, are we still going lower? Now, I remember this completely now. It just came back to me. So do we mulligan this and keep going down looking for hate? You know what? I do want to talk about sideboarding. It's really important. It can't be overlooked. So this is my sideboard. I particularly brought in 3 Deafening Silences into the board for this matchup in particular. Is there anything else here that you guys want to bring in for the matchup? And thoughts about what you're going to take out? Obviously, the 3 Deafening Silences are coming into the deck. Like, is Path any good? Purge, Worship, Gust, Veil, Ashiok, Blessing. So Neil says Mulligan again. Freedy says Gust. Gust seems pretty good. I agree. So for me at this point, it looks like 3 Deafening Silence, 2 Ether Gusts coming in, and that's probably it for me. Worship's not doing anything because Emrakul is just going to make us sacrifice all our permanents anyway. Purge and Path not really doing anything. So yeah, let's say that I'm bringing in these 5 cards. I can check here what we were up to. So I took out 2 Skyclave Apparitions, 1 Eternal Witness, 2 Time Warps, and that should probably be it. So both Time Warps, because we're not getting to turn 5, or even 5 mana probably. Apparitions, obvious. And then the 5th card, I just chose an Eternal Witness because I've still got 3 left in the deck after that. And odds are, if we're casting a counter spell, what are the percentages of casting an Eternal Witness to get back a force and have another blue card in hand to pitch? It seemed like a fine choice. Like the Uros are drawing us cards, the Snakes are drawing us cards, that kind of stuff. So yes, we did bring in 5 cards and took 5 cards out. So good call, everybody. Just keep mulliganing. Yeah, I definitely mulliganed here. Opponent mulliganed to 5 as well, and this is a keep now, right? Because we've got the Teferi. And what do you guys bottom here? We have to bottom 2 cards. We can go bottom a Teferi and an Oracle, bottom both Oracles. So for those of you just joining me, this stream is all about you guys. I went through the league already. I made my decisions. I'm trying to see if I made any suboptimal plays, see if I can learn a little bit from you guys, if you guys can learn a little bit from me. Freedy says both Oracles. All right, that's cool, because I at first I was like, well, I've got duplicates, so why not keep 1 and 1? We'll get it to Fairy down, and then we'll be able to play a Snake and draw into some stuff. But ultimately, if the opponent sides in Mystical Dispute or something crazy like that to deal with Teferi, this is just going to win the game. So yes, I do believe I bottomed both of these Oracles. So very nice call, guys. Opponent mulligan to 4. It's a combo deck. They do that sometimes. Mana Confluence, and that was hilarious. I drew into the 3rd Teferi. So we're gonna crack this, get a Temple Garden. Decisions here, I think pretty clear. No reason to not just go get a shock. Opponent plays a Pillar and passes. Now, one scary line against this deck is that they let you go to your upkeep, and then they'll exile a Simian Spirit Guide and cast Violent Outburst. It's their only instant speed cascade spell, in which case Force is actually unable to interact, but looks like they didn't have that here. So play the Hallowed Fountain, play Teferi, tick it up, see what we got. Opponent just concedes. So very fast match. And as I mentioned a couple times already, I have tweaked the deck particularly to be ready for this particular matchup. So Teferi Tron indeed. So very quick round 1. I was kind of hoping to run into this deck as many times as possible. Let's continue and see if I see it anymore in this league. So for those of you joining me a little late, I already announced in the title of the stream and earlier that this is a replay analysis from a 5-0 league that I ran last night. The deck is feeling great. I've gone 4-1, 3-2, 4-1, 5-0 in the last 4 leagues. So if we add that up, right, it's 21 and 4. I think that's right over 5. No, it's less than that, right? It's less than that. I didn't go 5-0 twice. It's 8 plus 5 is 13 plus 3 16 and 16 and 4. That's right, 16 and 4. So percentages, that 80%, something like that. All right, the next opponent is Pale King 09. Let's check it out. Well, the opponent's playing a ridiculous deck, right? And they happen to run into into a deck that was prepared for their ridiculous deck. So it looks like I won the die roll on this one. Unknown opponent. And here is the opener. Is this good enough for you guys? Obvious keep, obvious mull. I mean, it's looking pretty good. Looking pretty good to me. Shortcoming is that, we don't have too many colors in our lands, but the Hierarch sort of more than makes up for it. I think this hand is actually fairly strong. Yeah, definitely keep this. It's a good keep. It's a good, strong keep. Before I say anything, I want to see what you guys think. It's not borderline. This is a very nice hand. If, however, the opponent just bolts our Hierarch, we're in a tight spot. We're just immediately put in this position where we really need to draw a land, and not just any land, like a fetch or blue land, Yeah, fair enough, Neil. Fair enough. All right, opponent plays Inspiring Vintage, and I was surprised to not see a 1-drop right away. I'm thinking, okay, maybe they have a bolt on my upkeep or something. Am I going to get to untap with Hierarch against red-white? Looks like I am. So play out the land that I have. Possible I could have taken a different line. I could have played the Coatl, see if I drew a better land. But now having played the land, what's your guys' line here? Get to Fairy down, play the Coatl, try to draw some more stuff. Already with the difficult decisions, there's plenty of choices here. The keep was not difficult. Playing Hierarch was not difficult. But we arrive at turn 2, and there's at least 3 reasonable decisions here, I think. Okay, we've got Topo saying Witness. That's a cool call. I can see that. Any others? Neil says get down to Fairy. Are you guys thinking about the matchup in your analysis? Or are you just thinking in a vacuum what Soulherder wants to do? To Fairy to stop instants. Paintball says he'd Witness to guarantee land next turn. A killed Hierarch means no blue. That's also an excellent observation. So I like what you guys are saying. I did go with Witness because land drops are so important in this deck. If we can hit our land drops and the opponent doesn't kill us immediately, we should have no problem taking over this game. I really like the option also of getting a Teferi down. If I didn't have Witness in hand, Teferi would be the obvious choice. But in this particular position, just getting an extra land into our hand is pretty massive. So I hope in light of that explanation, those of you who suggested Teferi can see the rationale and appreciate it. So a weird land probably means we're not playing against Burn. I enjoy that Kaldheim and some of the other recent sets are encouraging people to sort of try a bunch of new cards in Modern. All right, Stoneforge Mystics, so this could be some build of Hammer Time, I guess, at this point. Weird for them not to have 0 drops or 1 drops, though. What is Stoneforge going to get? That might also reveal a little bit of information. Wait, sorry, I'm toggling the wrong thing here. All right, let's continue. Batterskull. Okay, so it's not Hammer Time anymore. I was also a little surprised to see Batterskull. All right, well, we've got a land drop for this turn. And we hit an Ephemerate. Very powerful card. So, what's the plan here, team? What are we doing? Are we playing Teferi and bouncing Stoneforge? Are we playing Ice Fang and Ephemerating to try to draw some cards? We can Skyclave the Stoneforge right away. Obviously, we're probably gonna play Prismatic Vista and get some blue mana going. Isotope says Skyclave. Teferi says bounce and hold up Ephemerate. I mean, I could see it. Bouncing Stoneforge seems a little sketchy because they get to play it out and get another sword in hand or something. It is a tempo play, which could work to our advantage since our deck does want to take advantage of board development and extra time. Skyclave the Stoneforge so they can't put Batterskull in. Hold up Ephemerate. Teferi bounce go. Ephemerate Witness. So many options. All right, so Skyclave, get rid of the Stoneforge, right? I'm sure some of you guys said this. It seemed pretty clear to me. I didn't really want to bounce that thing and give them any more value. Just get rid of that Stoneforge permanently. Now, let's see. Somebody said Teferi bounce go Ephemerate Witness. Now that would have been fine, but now notice that if I cast Skyclave, I'm not casting Ephemerate here because Not only do I not want to crack this to get another plains, I literally can't. I only have one basic plains, so I'm forced into getting island here. But I still think this was the best play. Hopefully, you guys agree with me. Hopefully, a sword doesn't. I mean, getting a sword doesn't matter when we have Skyclave, Witness, and Ephemerate. It's probably true, and it's a very interesting observation. So get to Ferry down, bounce to Stoneforge. They play a land. They play Stoneforge again. They get a sword. The following turn, I Skyclave the Witness and hold up. Well, I still don't have triple white, so I'm not really ephemerating to blow a bunch of stuff up. But getting rid of their creature means that they can't really do much with their equipment. So I could see the line for sure. Should have... No, I didn't. I didn't tap wrong because I can't get white, and I need double white for Skyclave. I hope that much is clear. I definitely thought about that quite a lot. But even if you guys miscalculate something, don't feel bad. This stuff is super complicated, and the hope here is just that we're all sort of going to learn something, whether it's like a tiny thing or a big, massive thing. So they've got their own Skyclave, and so clearly it would be nice for us to be able to ephemerate here. Again, I literally can't because I don't have another white to go fetch. And I still think that's a fine deck building decision. I don't think the fact that I'm in this spot without being able to get a second basic plains, totally fine anyway, because I don't really want another basic plains, even if I could cast Ephemerate right now. So, what are they going to hit? I mean, if they know my deck, they should probably get rid of the Eternal Witness, since it's like the engine that powers the entire deck, but they get rid of my Skyclave. Can't really blame them. Skyclave's a very powerful card. If they kind of know what I'm doing, they might expect Ephemerates, and that could get dirty with the Skyclave. So, you know, hard to say it's like a strictly incorrect decision, but it's borderline strictly incorrect. All right, let's crack this Vista. Now, we untap. We draw another land. Perfect. We do want to hit our land drops, as I mentioned. So for me, at least part of this turn is obvious. A couple of parts of this turn are pretty obvious. And remember, I want as many bits of instruction from you guys as possible. Tell me what land to play. Tell me the sequencing. Am I paying life for Hallowed Fountain, playing it tapped? You know, playing Coatl main phase, holding it up. What's going on here? Yeah, DV, I think you're onto something there. I think Teferi, play this untapped, hold up our instant speed interaction. Teferi, being on the board is gonna just make our hand a lot stronger, because if this deck is running like some Lightning Helixes or some Path to Exiles, maybe more Skyclave Apparitions, being able to cleanly ephemerate without the possibility of the opponent responding to our ephemerate because Teferi prevents it, is just pretty busted. So throughout this league, I really felt I was drawing significantly more Teferis, going from 2 up to 3 to help combat this Tybalt's Trickery deck. I took out Blade Splicers. I said earlier, it's definitely a shift towards a higher power level for my deck, even though I really love playing fun creatures like Blade Splicer. It's a very strong card, but compared to the overall power level of Modern, hard to make the argument that, particularly in a Force of Negation deck, like choosing with Blade Splicer over an extra Teferi, probably not the correct decision. So anyhow, here we go. I'm going to play this Teferi. Doing it first before I play my land drop, bounce that Illusion, see if I draw a different land. Maybe I want to play it before the Hallowed Fountain. So now, do I run out the Oracle? It's an interesting draw, because we could continue to ramp with the Oracle potentially, or, just keep holding up our instant speed stuff. Oh, looks like I played that tapped. That's something, I remember it now that I see it. But, I guess my plan was to ephemerate almost no matter what. And so, playing that untapped, I felt may have just been wasteful. So I'm sure you guys might have something to say about that line, playing this tapped. Because I guess at the end of that turn, I was thinking Ephemerate, Ephemerate, Ephemerate. Let's see what... So here's a stomp. I'm casting Ephemerate. And so playing the Hallowed Fountain untapped, I guess, would have been slightly wasteful. That was my read on the turn. Okay, so one of the really nice things about ephemerating in response to Stomp is it just counters a Stomp, and so the dude goes to the graveyard instead of being exiled and going on an adventure. So the giant is just dealt with, and that's just pretty awesome. So if you guys were playing the opponent side of the board, would you attack here and you attack me or Teferi? I mean, clearly if you're attacking, you're almost certainly going after Teferi. For me, it kind of seems if they attack, I'm going to get a 3/3, which could be scary for them, but they're sitting on 6 cards. They'll be untapping with the 7th card. One of those cards is a Batterskull. I don't know. For me, this is a tricky attack. I feel like I would get in if I were them. They're certainly not playing Ephemerates, so this Skyclave Apparition has already done its job, you know? So I'm pretty sure they didn't attack. And I was just a little bit surprised about it. Because I can't block with Eternal Witness. Opponent should have realized by now that the interaction between Eternal Witness and Ephemerate is just extremely powerful. So it's kind of a free attack for them because I'm not going to block here. So I'm not going to get the 3/3 if that was kind of scary for them. So it's just an opportunity for them to get Teferi out of the picture at the cost of me attacking with an Eternal Witness for 3 damage. So yeah, exactly, Neil. I just thought it was I thought it was a little bit weak that the opponent didn't attack there. All right, so continuing, rebound, ephemerate, Eternal Witness, just grab it from the graveyard, draw another Eternal Witness. This is, you know, we have an embarrassment of riches at this point. So if you guys have suggestions, just throw them out because we're not going to win in the next couple turns. We've got a long way to go, but we definitely have the tools to make it happen. Looks like I'm going to start off with an Oracle in the main phase here. There's nothing to grab out of the graveyard, so let's see what we can hit with this guy. Another Eternal Witness. We could play our land at this point. I mean, at this point, like, just holding up instant speed stuff just seems totally fine. So pass back to the opponent. It's their turn 5. I think they may have missed their 4th land drop last turn. Okay, so they've got a Chalice of the Void on 1 here. Guys have any response to this? Do we cast the Ephemerate now? You know, something that I've done a couple of times, and Freedy actually pointed this out to me on a previous stream, is that when I don't get to resolve Ephemerate, I assume it's going to exile, like, because that's like 90% of the time that's what's happening. Like, if I have an empty board when it comes time for the rebound, I don't cast Ephemerate, it stays in exile, it doesn't resolve, it goes to exile. But when you cast it with Chalice out, it still goes to the graveyard. It's not like it's going away forever. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if a rebound came and I cast it and it just went to the graveyard. We could potentially just get rid of this Chalice down the road. So might as well draw a card. I think I may have just kept the Ephemerate in hand, just feeling like I'm going to be able to deal with this thing sooner. Like, I could play the Teferi and bounce this thing, but I don't know. I think I play the snake first. Let's see. Green and blue. Get the snake down, see what we draw. I mean, obviously you play the snake to see if you draw a force, right? Drew a 2nd Ephemerate, which makes the 1st Ephemerate easier to cast. We'll still have easier to cast. Okay, I just let it resolve because I want to get rid of this, save these in hand, and just be able to sort of do more later. If you guys see something very wrong with that, let me know. But I guess I was just feeling like I was in such a position of strength here. And maybe I had been thinking slightly that they were going to get exiled, and that might have been a bit of a misstep on my part. Like, if I were to just draw a card, get Ephemerate countered on the rebound, chill in the graveyard for a little while, I've got Eternal Witnesses, I can get them back. So I think that probably was a little bit of a mistake. No reason to not replace these with potentially more impactful cards in the short term, right? Yeah, no, I think I found my way there. So Isotope, which reminds me, how was the snow? Oh my goodness, it's oh, so you're on Long Island. That's awesome. I grew up on Long Island. No, I'm in Brooklyn, and I don't know if it's still snowing now. It's pretty dark outside, but I went to the supermarket. It felt like we had like over a foot. I mean, it might have been drifts, but certainly over a foot. Maybe closer to a foot and a half. So anyhow, I think I'm on the same page with Neil. That I probably should have drawn some cards there. Anyhow, opponent played their Chalice. It's kind of a controlling like red-white Taxes deck with Chalice of the Void and Bone Crusher Giant. Very interesting. So what are we hitting? Time Warped. That's a pretty strong spell. I think that probably just ends the game. Opponent conceded before I actually cast any spells. I don't think they didn't know that I had the Time Warp, but I guess they had enough. But that just locks it out for those of you guys who aren't really familiar with the dynamics of it. I have 5 mana to cast Time Warp, and I've got 1 extra mana to just be able to Ephemerate Eternal Witness and get it back every single turn. I'm going to be ticking up Teferi to infinity. Oh, but you know what? I can't currently cast Ephemerate, so that is it doesn't give me the win right away. I would need to actually cast Time Warp, tick Teferi up, take my extra turn. Teferi would be at 3. I could choose to pass a turn back to the opponent, tick Teferi up so that I don't lose him. The only reason not to just bottom out Teferi is if the opponent does have like a bolt or a path in hand. But, you know, they knew that I had Teferi on the board. If they had removal in hand on their... oh, you know what? They have Chalice. I'm just talking like a whole lot of nonsense. So I would have taken my extra turn, tick Teferi up, bottom him out, bounce the Chalice, and then I was off to the races. Oh, but if I bounced the Chalice, then I might turn on their removal. But again, if they had removal, they probably would have cast it before they played Chalice. So... very dominant board position. Whether I was going to win this turn or pass to the opponent and then win on the next turn, that's kind of it. Topo says you need 2 turns to win. Yeah. Well, I don't need it. I think I can take the turn. Well, tick Teferi up. Take the turn. Attack in the air. Opponent goes to 15. Untap. Teferi's at 3. Bounce the Chalice. Cast Ephemerate. If the opponent doesn't have removal, we're off to the races. We've got enough mana to just win, and the opponent will never take another turn. The only situation where they slow us down is if we bounce Chalice and they happen to have a random bolt or a path to respond to Ephemerate. So game 1 against a weird red-white deck. Let's go to game 2, see how that one went. All right, opponent's on the play. Let's see how the opener looks. Snap Keep, we're looking for lands, snakes, potentially a Hierarch, and oh, you know what? I mentioned that sideboarding is very significant. It's an important part of playing any deck, but particularly this deck, because I think you know, there's a lot of ins and outs. It's a pretty tricky deck. So, you know, what are you guys bringing in for this matchup? Let me know some of your thoughts. Yeah, but Neil, if I Ephemerated again, unless I drew another land, I wouldn't have enough mana to cast Time Warp in that spot. Oh, you know what? Actually, I would be Ephemerating Eternal Witness. Anyhow, let's not think about that too much more. You can watch the replay, think about it a little bit. Hey, Hoodrat, welcome. And I believe... Mr. Ugly Hoodrat, that you were the one that suggested I should set up Streamlabs, and so I did go ahead and do my best to do that. I'm not a, I forget what they call it, like a Twitch partner. I'm just a Twitch affiliate, so I don't think I get all the bells and whistles for donations that like the biggest streamers get. But if any of you guys are interested in donating a little bit, down below the stream is a little header that says About, and there should be a big donate button down there. It'll take you to a page, you type in a message, make a donation. It should have like an animation pop up. It should read your message on the stream. So that's all because of Hoodrat's suggestion, so big ups to Mr. Hoodrat. Are you guys thinking about what to sideboard against this red-white Taxes deck? Or are you just like, it's so easy we don't have to worry about it? So let's see. There's not a lot, right? There's not that much. One possibility, you know, like it's always interesting to think about bringing Ashiok in against decks that run things like Stoneforge that want to search the library because Ashiok stops them from searching the library. But they don't really, it's a 2-color deck. I doubt they have fetches, and if they do, they don't have a lot of them. So, and they don't do anything with the graveyard, so you're really not getting a lot of value out of Ashiok. Um, so Neil, I definitely want to bring in paths, I think, because if they're running swords, which they almost certainly are, we definitely want to be able to shut down those swords, because that's an easy way to lose against any kind of Stoneforge deck. So I can't remember if I brought in Gusts. I don't think I really cared about their red spells so much. It looked like they're just running like the Giant and maybe Lightning Bolt. So let's go back to the match and see how I actually sideboarded. So it looks like I took out 3 of my forces and brought in 2 paths and 1 Ether Gust. So I was on the fence about Ether Gust, but Force and Negation, not that good. All right, so I don't know who just made that announcement, but thank you. I'll do my best to keep it up. I wish I had 2 monitors, but I'm just here on my laptop trying to be like making the most of it, you know? So 2 paths, 1 gust, took out 3 forces. I left in 1 force just in case like they try to resolve either a removal spell or like a chalice in a tight spot. So there's 1 force left, but we brought in some removal and 1 gust. Opponent mulled to 6, we kept the 7. Opponent kept their 6. Gemstone Caverns go. That's a pretty bad first turn. So we get to maybe see Of One Mind in action in this game. I know McDerp. Maybe I'll give him a heads up here. Okay, let's see. Doing my replay now. About to cast some if you're around. He's just doubting, so I want to make sure that he gets to see some of this action. No plays though, so I think we'll just pass the turn, right? All right, we've got an Arbiter, so that means I should probably crack my fetch right now. Glad that that's the only fetch I have. It's going to make things a little bit easier. Hallowed Fountain, and so we're going to have white, white, green, green, blue, blue. Nice combination of shocks. No Death Touch, but I don't think we're going to need it. Hierarch is an interesting draw there. So this already might be into the territory where you guys might want to weigh in on sequencing. I mean, we've got a 2-drop to play, so it seems like the obvious choice, but maybe there's like a reason we might want to run out the Hierarch first. Like Hierarch, hold up Path, just to get our mana out ahead of this Leonin Arbiter, you know? They could play like Ghost Quarters and start getting rid of our lands, in which case we'd be happy to have down the Noble Hierarch. And Hierarch, I should point out, was a very interesting draw there because Of One Mind requires you to have a human and a non-human in order to be able to cast it for 1 mana. For those of you guys unfamiliar with this card, it's pretty slick. Very similar to like Thoughtcast in Affinity decks. There's basically a requirement you have to meet, and if you do, then you're casting like Divination for 1 mana, and it could be really powerful, particularly if you're like recurring it with Eternal Witness. Okay, I'm pretty sure I just wanted to get Coatl down here as well. But looks like I went with the Hierarch. I can't remember every single decision from the league. But if we're going to be casting Of One Mind next turn, you know, it's weird because the extra mana, if I played Coatl here, I'd be using 2 mana efficiently. Next turn, I'd play Hierarch plus this. I don't know. If the opponent tries to kill Hierarch, though, I do have Ephemerate up, which is quite nice. I think that definitely weighed into the decision to play the Hierarch. And if the opponent is on the Leonin Arbiter plan, they may try to kill the Hierarch, in which case I can use the extra mana to protect it. So yes, definitely going to protect it, and then I get to flash in the Coatl, which is just really nice, super flexible play with this deck. I love having flash spells. It's part of why I want to test Glorious Protector, but with this new combo deck in the format, with Tybalt's Trickery, there's not really space in the deck right now to be playing stuff like Glorious Protector. All right, so we definitely want to flash in this Snake to make use of this rebound. Not only just to draw a bunch of cards, but also, well, primarily to draw a bunch of cards, but we also just want to keep this Ephemerate in play by getting it to the graveyard. Okay, so Ice Fang, we drew another Of One Mind. Definitely want to play this untapped. And I guess McDerp is just not around. That's a bummer. So, Sequencing doesn't matter. Remember, you guys can just totally spam any ideas that you have. Don't be shy. Seems like the most obvious line is just cast one of these of one minds, draw 2 cards, see what we hit. If we hit another hierarch, maybe we would play that instead of like using a path, but we do have something else, like we have another path, or we could just draw 4 cards, you know? Odds are we may have to discard if we do that though. Just too many cards. Yeah. So let's cast one of these of one minds. And hopefully that card, that's pretty impressive there. Drawing 2 cards off one of one mind, off of 1 mana, I should say, is extremely strong. So 7 cards in hand. Opponent's got 3 cards. They did mulligan to 6, but now we have an Ephemerate. We can ghost block if we want. We've got a Force to counter removal or anything else that they try to do. So there's a Stomp. Do you guys want to respond with Ephemerate? Do you guys want to force it? What's the thought here? I mean, 4 seems pretty clear. At least that's what I'm leaning towards, because we've got so many cards in hand, and we'd like to cast either Path or Ephemerate this turn, right? Like on a Snake, not an Ephemerate on a Hierarch. I don't think it's that silly. I think it's actually pretty good. So if we're gonna force, what are we going to pitch, I guess is the question. I could see actually a case for pitching the of one mind. We've got so many cards in hand, you know? And we're going to be able to draw as many cards as we want. We've got Eternal Witness for more of one minds. We've got Icefang Coatls, Ephemerates. You guys agree with that? Should I pitch the of one mind? Or maybe Teferi's not that useful here. Maybe the Coatl. So I don't know. I think I pitched the of one mind just because having a Coatl on the battlefield makes the other one closer to Death Touch, where you can get some basics, start having some sick blockers up. Whereas again, we're going to be drawing more cards than we know what to do with in this match, and the opponent's already on 2, so we're like massively outstripping them. But it looks like I pitched the Teferi. So tricky making some of these decisions. Of one mind, obviously going to draw us 2 cards. The Teferi maybe just not really that relevant since bouncing Skyclave is pretty bad, and we don't really care about the Arbiter. I guess that's the rationale there. DV Neil says definitely would not have pitched Teferi. Interesting. Okay, well, why? Because it could bounce like a Batterskull or something like that. Yeah, but they're on 2 cards, and we've got the protection of Ephemerate for Witness, getting back Force if we need to counter. So I don't know. It's just no, I don't know. Like it's the combo works without Teferi. We don't need to prevent the opponent from interacting. If they interact, it's not usually a big deal. So interesting that you think about it that way, though. That he's the 3rd piece of the combo. Ephemerate loop with Witness. I mean, anyhow, Teferi's a good card, but Icefang is great. It just stops any of their potential aggression, gives us more time to lock things up. It's a close call. Let's just let it go, but very cool that you have a different opinion about it. Definitely seems better than keeping of one mind. I guess we'll see. So here, I think for me, I want to save my mana. Opponents kind of all about that like mana denial plan, and again this giant is just going to go to the graveyard, so very happy to spend the Ephemerate that way. Opponent's going to get in with both of their creatures. We're not going to block. We got plenty of life. No reason to flash in this other snake. Just hit the one that's already there. Draw some cards. Drew 2 lands. Not the best, but play Rainforest, and let's see. Since I drew the Rainforest, I'm getting ahead before you guys get to give me your lines. I thought about it a lot, but pathing the Arbiter lets me just crack these lands at cost instead of paying extra. So if you guys have any suggested lines, you go ahead and share them. But I already pathed the Arbiter, so I'm definitely going to crack this Misty Rainforest. I guess there's a question of, what land I might want to get with the fetch. So let's see. We've got 4 mana to work with. Seems like Witness, of One Mind, pretty nice options. Opponents on one card. I don't really know like how deeply I should dwell on you guys giving me strategic advice here, because we're like extremely far ahead of the opponent here. So crack that. I just got a basic forest here. Cast the Witness, get back an Ephemerate, use the ability. It's, again, like Chalice of the Void on 1. I think I chose to cast it here. Get back Force of Negation, just counter the Chalice. You know, it seems like one of the few ways the opponent has to sort of claw their way into the game. Okay, catch the rebound. Get Ephemerate back out of the graveyard. Drew another Eternal Witness. Very nice. Let's draw 2 cards real quick. Been hitting a lot of lands off of One Mind, but let's see. I think that's the second time we've cast it so far. So it's drawn 4 cards for 2 mana. Very nice. Helping us power through these pockets of lands, for sure. So I'm kind of rushing here again because I'm super far ahead of the opponent, but I liked getting back of One Mind there just to keep refilling our hand. Really show the potential strength of the card in conjunction with Ephemerate and Eternal Witness. We still have an Ephemerate up here. Time to start getting in the air. You know, I don't think the opponent's doing much with this Skyclave Apparition. Okay. So this is one of the newer cards, I think, in the format. It's one of these lands that has a spell on the back. So 2 red and X deals X damage divided as you want between up to 2 target creatures. A little bit corny. I mean, they're going after 2 Eternal Witnesses, and they know I have an Ephemerate in hand. I also have another Eternal Witness in hand, so hit the Eternal Witness. Keep getting back of One Mind. We're going to catch the rebound on Ephemerate. I could see a case for getting back another Ephemerate just to increase the likelihood that we're going to be able to keep the Ephemerate chains going. Again, maybe the opponent wanted to attack there. It seemed like kind of a free attack. I'm not going to block with my Eternal Witness. Okay, so getting in the air. We're just grinding this one out, guys. I mean, I don't think the opponent has too many top decks that they can hit. And I think they may have just, let's see, Eternal Witness getting back another path, I guess. Right. So many choices. Let's play an Of One Mind. We've got 3 mana left. Play a Hierarch. I mean, our board, this is how it tends to go. It tends to snowball once we get our Of One Minds cast. All the Ephemerates looping. Super just impossible for the opponent to catch up. Even if they cast something like an Overloaded Winds of Abandon, you know, we'd get a bunch of basics, and we'd also just be able to immediately rebuild with a bunch of creatures. It would be pretty good out of their side if they had an Overloaded Winds, but they didn't really have it, and they scooped, so... Yeah, this is exactly. It's not really worth thinking too carefully about, you know, like exactly which line to take. So it seems like an extremely favorable matchup. It seems like the opponent is trying out some cool ideas, trying to make Shatter Skull smashing work. I think we also saw like some interesting tech earlier. Oh, it's these like flip lands. They're trying these things out. I think we're generally pretty favored against Taxes style decks, as long as we don't get extremely wrecked by an Arbiter with a hand with like three fetch lands. You know, we can play around Skyclaves with Ephemerates, things like that. But this one in particular, since it's kind of an experimental build, it didn't seem like it lined up very well. So 2-0 so far. Let's go ahead and jump into the 3rd round. Playing against Dimitri Fernandez. It's an interesting combination of first names and last names. So did you guys, I should pause for a second and ask what you guys thought of One Mind there. Would you guys rather have seen another card, you know, like any card other than Of One Mind there? Like, I don't know, main deck Path, extra Teferis, I don't know. Other creatures, Blade Splicer. Yeah, Neil. I mean, that's I think it's pretty clear that I'm pretty high on the card. It just, yeah, it drew me 10 cards. I think that's and for very little mana investment, we should say as well, right? Like every time you're casting it, you're just spending 1 mana, and once you're deploying your hand and redrawing a hand like every turn, like the opponent really can't do very much at that point. So I'm glad it looks good to you. For me, it seems quite good. Let's go ahead, see what Dimitri is working with. All right, opponent is keeping their 7. We're on the draw. Keep or mull. I think I know what you guys will say, but still, you know, the point of the stream here is to get your guys' thoughts. I won't dwell too long on it, but interested to know your thoughts. Isotope, I think I agree with you. It's a mulligan. I said at the outset that we're really looking in the blind in particular for like a hierarch or a snake. A hierarch gets us to our 3 drops. Snake is just something to cast on turn 2. So for me, this is a pretty easy mulligan. Now, important to point out that hand would have been pretty sensational against this crazy new Tybalt deck, but in the blind, we had to mulligan, and this looks significantly better. So what are you guys bottoming here? Can we afford to put one of these lands on the bottom? Redundant snake. Neil, thanks very much for the congrats, and thanks so much for joining me and giving me all that input. I'll catch you next time. Isotope says mull from the previous one. This one is a keep, so I'm going to keep it. I guess the question was just about what to bottom. For me, you know, we've got our lands to cast the snake. We're on the draw, so we'll probably hit another land before turn 2. Basic Plains doesn't do a lot. We would like to hit a 3rd land to be able to curve into Uro or Soulherder, so we're going to draw an extra card from Coatl, maybe 2 extra cards if we need it to hit that 3rd land. So this Basic Plains is sort of the odd man out in my view. Okay, we thought that the previous deck, leading on, what is it called? Inspiring Vantage, that red-white fast land. We thought that one was burn. It ended up being taxes. This is burn. On the draw against burn, very, very difficult spot. Opponent revealed another Uro. So, you know, we're not necessarily as poor off as we might be. We've got some life gain spells. Unfortunately, all of our lands are pretty painful. We can get this one in tapped. Okay, opponent with the Sacred Foundry. I always, on turn 2 against burn, am just like praying to not see it. Eidolon, I don't have any main deck like paths, so a resolved turn 2 Eidolon of the Great Rebel against us is just really, really hard to beat because it ends up doing like 6 or 8 damage to us. So opponent with the pretty nutty start here. 2 creatures, casting spells on curve, using all their mana, getting in for repeated damage with their creatures. Goblin Guide reveals Cryptic Command is pretty heavy. We're already down to 9 life on turn 2. Opponent plays a 3rd land. They suspend a Rift Bolt. Getting in with Guide, getting in with Swift Spear. You guys want to weigh in at all on whether we're blocking here? I guess I might as well let this Goblin Guide trigger resolve. Am I blocking? If I'm blocking, what am I blocking? We drew another land. Interesting. Isotope says block. Yeah. I think blocking is pretty smart. And so do we block the Guide or do we block the Swift Spear? Let's get a snake down, see what it draws. Maybe it'll draw like a force or something else, help us interact a little bit. Block Swifty. It's a possibility. I chose to go in front of the Goblin Guide because they're fairly low on cards. They've been hitting their land drops. If they have only 1 spell, we'll take 2 damage from the Swift Spear, the same as we would take 2 damage from the Goblin Guide. The odds that they have exactly 2 spells here to cast with 2 cards in hand seemed low to me. The odds that they have no spells to cast seem significant. So the odds on the board are, they say that the Goblin Guide is likely going to be more damage. And if it's not more damage, it'll be the same as the Swift Spear. So curious to know whether you guys agree with that logic or not, but that's my idea. So there we go, right? Opponent didn't cast anything, actually. And we saved 2 points of damage and took 1 rather than taking 2 and preventing 1. Oh man, there's so many options. One of them stands out like a beacon against the others, though. Well, who knows? Actually, no. There's two. I think there's 2 contenders for what to do here. Okay, so Isotope. I think there's only a couple people left in chat. We started off with a nice group. I might need to pop into Discord to try to rally the troops. Okay, so Isotope, you say now that Skyclave is better. I think I was on the same page as you, just because Uro doesn't leave a body on the board, and Skyclave is gonna. So Uro will gain us life, but it's going to lose us at least this much life next turn. But if we play Skyclave, get rid of Goblin Guide, we saw that they didn't cast anything on their attack stat. Means maybe they're just sitting on 2 lands here. Get rid of one of their creatures, leave up a blocker. Could be a good line. So I believe that's what I chose to do. Okay, so we are totally on the same page. Kill the Swift Spear, and we can trade with the Goblin Guide, give them back a 1/1. Opponent going for Boros. Oh, so that was pretty dirty. They had the Boros Charm, didn't go for it during combat, interestingly enough. Oh, and they had the suspended Riftbolt, so that was that. You know, we had good stuff, but we were on the draw. Effectively a turn 3 win for the opponent, since they win before they even draw a card on turn 4. Really, really hard to beat 3 lands, 2 creatures, and a handful of burn spells. So did not get there in game 1. We'll be on the play in game 2. That should mean that we're able to sort of hustle into Uros, gain a bunch of life, pull way ahead. As I did in the previous 2 rounds, so I'd like to pause and check out the sideboard, see what you guys think I should be bringing in. I'm going to run to the bathroom for a sec, so you guys just give me your thoughts about sideboarding, and I'll be right back. All right, cool. So, Isotope, I want to say thank you again for the subscription earlier. I don't have the biggest Twitch channel, but I have some pretty great followers and subscribers, so I really appreciate it. Let's see. You're saying kill... I mean, that must have felt pretty good from the Burn player's side, because they were sitting on a suspended Riftbolt and a Boros Charm with me at 7, so... they kind of knew I had it in the bag even if I killed their creatures. So extremely strong hand from Burn. Bring in Celestial Paths and Gust. Celestial Paths and Gust. Anything else? Ashiok, Deafening Silence. Remove Cryptics, Time Warp, 1 Teferi, 1 Soulherder. That's 6 cards. And then we take out... 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6. I could see that. That's the reasonable call there. I think you're forgetting one very, very important sideboard card against burn. Do you see it? So there's a delay between the chat and the stream, so I'll just go ahead and say that Worship is excellent against burn. If we can get down a creature or two, stick Worship, it becomes extremely difficult for the burn opponent to win. Worship is actually like a really, really excellent out to Eidolon of the Great Revel, since the triggers deal damage and they don't do anything when we're at 1 life. So yeah, we have to be careful with the sideboarding. So 7 cards in, 7 cards out. We'll have to go back and see exactly which cards I took out. Looks like I was right there with you. Take out 2 Cryptics, take out 2 Time Warps. I took out an Eternal Witness. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I took out 2 of 1 Minds, only because they bring in Searing Blazes. We often have to trade creatures with them or even chump block. And I just can't really be spending mana to draw extra cards. I need to be spending mana to get stuff onto the battlefield. And yeah, so I took out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and brought in those 7 cards that we discussed. So, all right, being on the play here. The fact that this has Uro in it makes it a keep for me. We'd obviously love to draw something to do on turn 2. Force is actually quite nice as well. It's another thing that just prevents like any kind of like 3 damage spell. So between Uro and Force, maybe the Skyclave as well, we should have time to do some stuff. So for me, like, particularly without a Snake in hand, without a Coatl in hand, like, I'm just all about getting tapped shocks to be able to just do as much as we can with our mana. All right, Inspiring Vantage, spending a Rift Bolt. I got a Hallowed Fountain. Doesn't matter too much whether we get a Hallowed Fountain or, particularly since we have, and we drew a basic, which is nice. But since we don't have anything to do on turn 2, we'll play another fetch and just thin the deck, get another shock. And let's see what the opponent's working with. Now, curious if you disagree with any of this stuff, but I typically don't spend forces until later in the game when spells become a little bit more important. If the opponent casts something like a Light Up the Stage, that's usually an excellent target for Force of Negation. Just prevent them from drawing 2 cards. Okay, opponent plays a land and passes. I'm going to crack the Windswept Heath and thinking about what lands I want to get. Obviously, we need to get some green going. We want double white for Skyclave Apparition. We've got another blue source here, so probably not Breeding Pool. I would think Temple Garden is probably the best choice. Okay, so the first sort of decision point here. Are we going to use this opportunity to sort of get it to Teferi down, start ticking it up, make it harder for them to cast stuff like Rift Bolt? Since they do need to, if they want to suspend it, Teferi just kind of shuts that down. They need to spend 3 mana on it instead. Get Teferi down or cast Uro now and ramp. I think it might be kind of close. What land are we playing? Uro get that life. I do have a bunch of fetches that could potentially get Uro escaped pretty soon. I think I went with Teferi here. I was just feeling like the opponent is not going to get me down from 15 in the next turn cycle. Can untap, play Uro, maybe draw an Ephemerate, and actually Ephemerate Uro. So opponent going to respond to this with a Boros Charm. Nothing we can do about it. And we will continue get Teferi down and tick that guy up. So Uro is the right call. 90+% of the time against burn, but as I said, like, they're not really pressuring my life total. I have a force up, even though it's like it would have to pitch Uro, which is nasty. Opponent gets down an Eidolon of the Great Revel, and they are lightning bolting my face. So pretty good stuff from the opponent. I actually mentioned to them in the chat here, I told them just one word. I can show you the word. Sequencing. Not trying to be a jerk, but that's pretty bad sequencing. Going down to 8, we're going to lose more life to cast spells at this point. But actually, you know, Teferi can bounce the Eidolon, right? So kind of nice to have Teferi there. So I think it seems pretty clear that we're going to bounce the Eidolon so we don't take extra damage. They're going to have to recast it. It's just like a big tempo hit for them. Definitely going to cast Uro. And then ramp, I guess, so we'll get both lands out, and we'll be able to cast our Coatl if we want to. We could probably just hold it up in case we need to cast Force of Negation and pitch it. So let's get things rolling. We'll start by bouncing that Eidolon. Ephemerate is beautiful. It means I can Ephemerate Uro if I want to. We'll see what Uro draws. First of all, I played a Windswept Heath for my land for the turn. Got a basic forest. Keep the damage I do to myself to a minimum. Green, blue, and then this green will allow us to cast Uro and potentially get another basic forest if we want to cast this Icefang Coatl. But the way things are going, looking to me like I might just want to Ephemerate to gain more life. You guys on board with that decision? I mean, no reason to make the decision before we actually draw a card off of Uro. All right, so we drew another Teferi. Not really the best draw. We've already got one on the table. So, Ephemerate, don't Ephemerate. I think Ephemerate's pretty clear, right? I mean, every time we cast an Ephemerate on Uro, we're effectively taking a card out of their hand. We've even got an instant speed creature to potentially flash in and catch the rebound. That's always something you need to keep in mind when you Ephemerate in Uro on an empty board, is you are going to lose the rebound unless you have an Icefang Coatl. So without further ado, let's go ahead and Ephemerate. We drew a Temple Garden, which means we could play this untapped, go get a blue source with Windswept Heath, and still cast the Coatl, but it's just too much damage. We can't really afford it, right? All right, up to 13 life. That was awesome. Uro's awesome. Opponent lightning bolts me. I don't counter it. And so they reversed the sequencing there. I actually didn't notice that the first time. So maybe I taught the opponent something. That's pretty hilarious. All right, crack this Windswept Heath. At this point, we've got white, green, 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 blue, blue. So maybe a second Hallowed Fountain is probably like the best choice. Yeah. So this is getting, somewhat complicated. If I flash in the Coatl, I take 2 from Eidolon. If I cast the Ephemerate, I take 2 more from the Eidolon. So that's just 4 damage right away. A little scary. They're sitting on 3 cards. They're going to draw up. I don't think they played a land last turn, which means that they're sitting on gas. On the other hand, if I don't cast the Snake, I don't get to cast Ephemerate, which means it stays in exile and will only have 4 cards in the graveyard. So it means that we can't escape Uro unless we immediately draw another fetch, which takes more life away. So even though it hurts, I think flashing in Coatl here is just necessary. You do the math, you see you've got 2 mana here, pay the life, get the free rebound, and then you've got exactly 4 mana left to cast Uro and escape. So pretty clean line. We're going to gain 3 of that life back with Uro, but we'll lose actually another 2 life because of this Eidolon. So I think the Eidolon's going to do 6 damage to me this turn. Extremely powerful card in burn. Ether Gust, nice interactive spell. I mean, another way to do this, guys, would have been, you know, to not take 4 damage from Eidolon, just cast Skyclave to blow this guy up, and then hold up Force. I didn't know I was going to draw an Ether Gust. That was my draw off of Ice Fang. So hard to say. If I didn't cast the Ephemerate, as I mentioned, I wouldn't have enough resources to cast Uro. And also, if I cast Skyclave, then I just don't have enough lands to even try to cast Uro. So I wouldn't be gaining life in that scenario. I would have gone from 9 to 7 off the Eidolon, but we would have gotten the Eidolon off the battlefield. And untapped with a couple of counter spells. Maybe next turn we can cast Uro. Tricky decisions. Okay, well, we drew that extra land there. Now we've got so many nice cards in hand, but we need to just not die, right? So clearly just tick up to Fairy. No reason not to. And just going to follow through with the plan, I think, here. Uro gains us that life, even though it's going to also lose us 2 to the Eidolon. Going to leave us at, what, 6? With just a Force of Negation for the time being. But it does get a pretty beefy 6/6 on the board, so this Eidolon can't really attack profitably. Yeah, so it did do 6 damage to us that turn. Now, this is interesting. I mean, they're sitting at 15, so probably correct for them to jam this second Eidolon. Puts us in a bit of a bind. Because casting any spell at this point is just going to deal 4 damage to us. Of course, we can attack with Uro, gain 3 life, so we're not just out of it. Opponent suspends Rift Bolt. Sequencing not terrible there. Obviously can't really attack, nothing to force that turn. So once again, Worship sort of coming to the rescue. So for anybody watching who hasn't played with Worship, particularly against Burn, it's really, really exceptional. So we'll go ahead and tick Teferi up here. We're going to play Worship. Worship doesn't even actually trigger the Eidolons because it's over 3 CMC. But now we can just cast whatever spells we want, and the game is sort of effectively over. The opponent realized it and conceded, so... yeah, that was an extremely, extremely fortunate top deck. Otherwise, I think what we were looking at is basically... die, right? I mean, I would attack with Uro. They probably take it. I gain 3, go to 9... draw a card. Hopefully it's a good card, right? But then, you know, I'm casting Skyclave, blowing up one of these things, taking 2 off of that. So it would be at 9, take 2, go to 7. No, take 4 off of that. So I go to 5. Pretty scary spot to be in because, you know, I'd pass with, well, if I didn't cast Worship, I'd have a lot of mana to use, right? So cast Skyclave, deal with one of these guys, cast Purge, deal with the other. I mean, ugh. Let's just say I was happy that I drew Worship. Leave it at that. On to game 3. So at this point in the league, I was 2-0, feeling pretty good. But being on the draw against Burn in game 3 is always a hard spot to be in. Let's see, bounce, attack, exile, leave up Ether Gust. Yeah, I guess that would have kept me alive, right? So, let's see, the opponent kept 7, and on the draw, that's super sketchy for us. Is this a keep? Is this a mulligan? You know, I'm finding it a little bit hard to actually remember right now what I did. I'm pretty sure I knew what I did, but since the point of this stream is to get your guys' feedback. Okay, I think it's a mulligan as well. I'm gonna let some people know. Going into game 3 against Burn in round 3, it was a pretty exciting game. If any of you want to jump back in to the stream. All right. So I have to mulligan this. I mean, it's almost getting there. Worship by itself is amazing, but we need an earlier plan, something to happen here. Like as things stand, we can't even cast the Coatl, so it's just a little too sketchy. So this is obviously significantly better, but there's no real super clear choice on what card to put on the bottom. Ephemerate, obviously nice with Uro, draws that extra life. Ether Gust, pretty good. Coatl, pretty good. If I recall correctly, I think I bottomed the Ether Gust of all things. You know, having a creature to be able to stop some aggression, to be able to potentially ephemerate, to draw more cards, to potentially ephemerate wants to probably gain life with Uro. I think I could also bottom the Hierarch. That's an option. You guys have an opinion? Like what you would do? What would you bottom here? I don't think I love bottoming the Hierarch. If they're going to use a removal spell to deal with Hierarch, that, you know, so be it. There's not a lot we can do about that. But if they don't remove the Hierarch, then we get to cast Uro on turn 2, which is pretty nice. So not really seeing any opinions. So I'll just go ahead. So I put the snake on the bottom. I guess ultimately it was between the snake and Ether Gust, right? I guess Ether Gust seemed a little more valuable to me. I took a little while thinking about it. Okay, Burns creature starts are usually the scariest. Goblin Guy gave us 1 land there, which is pretty great. We get to play that, crack it, get a forest, play the Hierarch, see what they're doing. Oh, so I got a land and I drew a second Ephemerate for the turn. So we are hoping the opponent doesn't have a removal spell for this Hierarch. Okay, so Swift Spear, and at least we dodge like the Searing Blaze, you know? Okay. So this is looking more and more like the nuts out of Burn, right? So double creatures plus removal for my Monodork. They're going to get in for 4 here, but at least they spent a Lightning Bolt on a Hierarch, right? That's something. I think ultimately the rationale behind keeping Ether Gust is it doesn't draw us a card like the Snake does, but it puts the Burn player slightly behind on cards, and I guess that's about it, right? Because either way, we're preventing one of their creatures from dealing damage that turn. So we drew another Uro, so all we need is time here, right? Ether Gust is the only 2-mana thing that we can cast. I had to think pretty carefully, I think, about the land sequencing here, because we really want to be able to cast an Uro and just like ephemerate at least once, if not twice. So it seems like we'll be able to do that no matter what. So play the Misty Rainforest. We'll probably just get a basic island. Again, if you guys have any observations or suggestions about potential lines, feel free to share them. But this is getting scarier and scarier. Remember that creatures are repeatable sources of damage. So even though Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage up front, Goblin Guide is going to deal like 4 or even 6 damage over the next couple of turns. Following it up with a Lava Spike, getting a Prowess trigger. I go down to 10. They're swinging in for 6. All right. They gave me a basic land, which is pretty beautiful. And let's see what the second one revealed. Path to Exile is a card I would like to draw, but I have to crack this fetch, so we're not going to draw that Path to Exile. So as I mentioned, basic island. We've got 2 basic islands now, and actually hitting that extra land was pretty clutch because we will be able to double ephemerate as long as we don't die right now. So we're looking to gust the Swift Spear here. They could have another bolt in hand or something. We want to prevent any extra damage. Also, these Goblin Guides just keep giving us land triggers. So the opponent went top with their Swift Spear. And you know, we did shuffle away the path, but another path found its way to the top of the deck. So I don't know if you guys want to weigh in on sequencing here, but there's not really that many choices, I don't think. I guess like play the basic island, play an Uro. The opponent tapped low enough that we're not even afraid of Skullcrack. So this could be pretty good here. We started this turn at 5 life. Uro takes us up to 8, draws a card. Gonna play this and crack for a basic Plains, I think. Again, just taking as little damage as possible. Ephemerate again. So the opponent had the nuts, but I think we had sort of the anti-burn nuts in this game. Play Hallowed Fountain untapped. We're going to ephemerate again. Remember, we started the turn at 5. We're currently up at 11 after playing, I believe, 3 lands this turn. Uro has drawn us into a Celestial Purge. We drew a path for the turn. So the creatures out of the opponent's opening hand, we do have answers for them at this point. We also have another Uro to potentially cast next turn. So I don't know that I've ever, I can't remember a time beating such a nutty hand out of burn. It's literally been the nut so far. So let's see what they've got for their next turn here. We know that they're drawing the Swift Spear. One thing to note is that since I cracked the Windswept Heath for a Snow-Covered Plains, I do not have a second green source to be able to escape Uro next turn. Could be a misstep, but taking another 2 damage against burn is just it's kind of hard. We do have more life gain with the Uro in hand anyway. All right, so they play the Swift Spear again. They do have 1 card left. We're still looking for lands if they want to give it to us. So that just shows a Coiling Oracle, a decent card. Opponent taps, untaps. That to me looked like a bluff. If they had something, they would cast it. I take 5 from their creatures here. Go down to 6, and I believe the opponent just passes the turn. We've got these 2 rebounds, and I had to think a little bit. If I flash in the Coatl, I'm absolutely not escaping Uro, and probably not even casting this Uro, because I only have 1 green source. So would you guys flash in Coatl here and catch the 2 rebounds, or would you let these 2, go to exile, cast Uro? If you do that, you've got at least 1 piece of removal up. We'd be at 9 life. Pretty much putting the opponent on nothing. They do have a redraw here with Sunbaked Canyon. I think this was a major decision point in this match. And so would love to get some of your ideas about, whether you like the idea of flashing in Coatl or just waiting. If you wait, again, we could flash in Coatl, and if we do nothing else, we could just cast Purge and Path to Exile, which is pretty nice. I'll just stretch. Wait to see if you guys have any thoughts. All right, so in this spot, to me, because I had these 2 removal spells in hand, it seemed more important to get value out of these ephemerates. I mean, flash in the Coatl, catch both ephemerates, draws 3 cards. It's pretty crazy to not take advantage of that. Keep in mind that we do have all these basics that we aggressively fetched with Uro last turn, so the Ice Fang will actually hopefully work as a removal spell as well. So let's flash that guy in. Gonna draw a bunch of cards. There's a Coatl. We're gonna resolve the first ephemerate. The Coatl was actually revealed on the Goblin Guide attack trigger. That's a land. Probably not gonna want to play that land this turn. just so we don't put ourselves dead to Boros Charm. Well, I'm not going to play it untapped, I should say. And the third card we're going to draw here is another Coiling Oracle and another Teferi. So nothing that I drew changed what I feel it was the best line, and so I'm going to play this Temple Garden tapped. Note that it does give us double green to have access to this Uro next turn if we want it. And play the Temple Garden tapped. We've got 2 removal spells up, and no reason to main phase them. Just pass to the opponent's turn, make them feel like they have a nice attack, and then actually just sort of do them in. Opponent starts by drawing a card there. They played a tapped Inspiring Advantage. That might have been the card that they've been keeping in hand for the last couple of turns. So this is setting itself up to be like a pretty devastating attack step here. Okay, and the Goblin guy drew us 2 lands. Pretty nice. We're going to throw this. It doesn't really matter how I block here. The end result is going to be getting rid of 3 of their creatures. So block, before damage, we're going to purge the Swift Spear, Path, the Goblin Guide. Opponent on 1 mana, they already played a land this turn. 2 cards in hand. Goblin Guide down, pass it my way, and you play that, crack it at this point. There's really no way they can deal 5 damage to me, so thin the deck a little bit. We're going to escape this Uro. Play that tapped. We drew an Ephemerate. And I just chose to play the other Uro in this spot. A little bit weird, the sequencing, because you have to be super careful when this situation arises. It doesn't make it very clear like which Uro is which. But the one on the left is the one that I actually escaped. So I knew that, and I chose to keep that one. So gain 3 more life, ramp again. Now ramping there is sort of significant because in a pinch, I could go get another Temple Garden to Ephemerate Uro and gain another 3 life, but sitting at 11 against 2 cards against burn, just feeling pretty good in this spot. Opponent's bolting my face, don't need to counter that. It seemed like they might have been dealing damage to cast like a Light Up the Stage. So I'd rather counter the Light Up the Stage. But seeing that they didn't have Light Up the Stage here, I felt like this was fine to counter. Stay at a high life total. Opponent passed the turn. I have to feel like they're getting close to scooping here. And they scooped there. So, let's see. You're back and you had to feed your hamsters and fish. Okay, well, anyhow, that was a really exciting game. I got a whole bunch of Uro triggers in that game. I'd love to actually count how many I got. So I cast 1. And then Ephemerated it twice. And then ultimately I escaped another one and cast another one. So I gained 15 life off of Uro that game. And I would have attacked with him here and gotten, I guess, a 6th trigger. So obviously Uro carrying the team that game. He's our most important card against burn. And I was pointing it out the whole time, but they had the literal nuts this game. You know, they started off with 3 creatures. They had Goblin Guide, Swift Spear, backed up by a bunch of burn spells. They may have drawn a land or 2 more than they would have liked, but you know, 2 of those were redraws. And between our sideboard removal spells and Uro gaining life, you know, we were able to get there against, you know, a pretty scary matchup. It's a little too early in my playing of this particular build to be able to say whether this matchup is definitively unfavorable, even, or maybe even slightly favorable. I want to say that it is at least slightly unfavorable because Eidolon can really do a number on us. And if we don't draw Uros, then we don't really stand too much of a chance. The other card that is decent is the Force of Negation. Since we're drawing so many cards, we don't really mind pitching to Force. It's just sort of like a gain 3 life spell because it's going to counter like a Lightning Bolt or something like that. So Lonely Isotope, you might want to check out the replay later of Game 3 because it was pretty sensational. So let's go ahead now to the 4th round. Now the fourth round was pretty awesome, if I recall correctly. I'm going to take just a very quick break, and I'll be back in a moment. You know what? I'm going to show you guys the opening hand. Maybe if it's a difficult decision, you guys can think about it. Leave me your thoughts while I'm at the bathroom. So, be right back. Yeah, it's a pretty clear mulligan. Not only does it not have like a turn 1 or turn 2 play, it doesn't really have any creatures, right? And we are, at our core, a creature deck. So pretty easy mulligan decision. And again, with for this one, I mean, does this one look better for you guys? I mean, it looks better to me. It's at least got the snake, right? And as we saw against Burn, Uro can be pretty pivotal. Force, also very significant. It's a card that I went up to 4 copies for in this league, since there's so much Tybalt's Trickery running around. So I believe I chose to keep this, and I think I would have just bottomed the second Force, right? We can't really afford to like double Force and pitch both of our blue cards, so... another choice is to bottom a land, but we don't hate hitting our land drops, right? So opponent kept on 6. We kept on 6 as well. Okay, so Horizon Canopy and Glade Cover Scout. So Isotope, I don't know if are you in the Discord, because I pasted some screenshots from this match, and it's just pretty sensational, pretty wild. So Glade Cover Scout down. I don't really want to draw too many more lands. We're going to hit them naturally anyway with between just draw steps and Coatls and Uros. So I can play a fetch and sort of thin the deck out a little bit. Okay, Hyena Umbra. For me, that's not counterable. It's just +1. It's not like what's the one that makes their creature unblockable? It's 2 mana. I just can't think of it right now. But I might counter that one. Certainly Daybreak Coronet, but not Hyena Umbra. Hyena Umbra is kind of fine. All right, well then you'll have the benefit of not having seen the way that this match develops. So the Boggles player mulligan to 6. They found a Boggle. They found a land. They had some auras, but they didn't have the second land. So definitely to our benefit. In this spot, we've got our white mana sorted, our blue mana sorted, but we do have cryptics in the deck, so we may want to have access to extra blue. But really, if I get a Temple Guard in here, I can filter white for double blue, and we're already at that cryptic mana point. Just with the land that we have in hand, we will need a 4th land, whatever it is. It could even be a basic Plains. But that's the power of Mystic Gate in this deck. It just helps cast your Skyclave Apparitions and your cryptic commands. So Temple Garden, pretty easy choice there. I mean, Hyena Umbra does give First Strike, which makes it kind of annoying, because even if we get Death Touch, we're not going to be able to like trade with their Scout. Of One Mind, we don't have a human yet, so we'll have to see. If it's just a Divination for 3 mana, it's not the best card, so we will want to eventually get a human down to potentially get value out of that. But as things stand, we already have a turn 2 play, so not so bad hitting more gas here. You know, we are potentially going to be looking for more lands, so having a spell that draws us more cards could be handy. The opponent did find their second land, pretty clutch. Spirit Link, I don't care about at all. It doesn't even increase their clock. All it does is gain life, right? So, like, they could go to 1,000 life. I don't care. Like, once I get infinite turns, like, that's all that matters. And we do have the Time Warp in hand. I didn't really comment on that yet. All right, so they just have a bunch of little auras, right? I'm getting attacked by a 3/3 on turn 3, you know, by Boggles. Not very scary. I'm almost certainly not blocking this here, but I guess let's see what I draw. Okay, now Witness can get back Rainforest, but only it's she can't because I don't have another land. I don't have another green source, I should say. So opponent's gaining life. We're losing a little bit of life, but this is a very slow start from Boggles. I should say I think that this is a rather favorable matchup. I put us at like 65-35. The only way that they can really beat us is if they get like some kind of evasion, like if they have Griff's Boon to be flying and we don't have a flying blocker, you know, to ghost block with or that kind of stuff. Or I don't know why I can't think about the enchantment. Can't think of the name of the enchantment that gives the creature. Is it Spirit Mantle? I think it's Spirit Mantle. That I was getting thrown off by Spirit Link. So if they have a Spirit Mantle and we just can't block their creature, that's one way that they can win. But we could even stop that with like a Cryptic Command by tapping their team. So unfortunately, I don't have double green here, and I didn't draw another green source. So Witness, not really an option. Seems like this is a good spot to ask, you know, your guys' opinion about what the best line might be. Note that Witness is a human that would turn on the reduced cost of One Mind. This turn, one option would be to play Mystic Gate, cast of One Mind for its full cost, and pass the turn, but that just seems poor. So do we just run out Uro here, gain a little bit of life, see if we can hit another land? Maybe just pass with Ephemerate up. That seems a little bit defensive and not mana efficient. And we're not dying next turn, so we don't strictly really need to ghost block. Yeah, I think Uro is probably the best call, just because it's gonna. We want to draw cards here because we kept the 3-lander, and it was a mulligan to 6, and we assumed, you know, we're gonna draw into lands, but it hasn't really happened yet. So if we get Uro down, gets us closer to hitting that land that we really want. Okay, let's see what we get. So Cryptic is a great card in the matchup. We do even have Eternal Witness and Ephemerate, but if we don't hit lands, it's gonna be pretty rough. Now I didn't attack there just because, again, their life total doesn't really matter. We're trying to establish a lock, at which point we can eventually draw Skyclave Apparitions if we need to blow up any of their important enchantments that are preventing us from attacking. Get a bunch of creatures on the battlefield and then eventually just overwhelm them. Cryptic can also help tap down their team if we get to that point. Here they're going for Daybreak. That's a pretty easy spell to counter. I should have asked you guys maybe what you would have pitched, but I pitched the Time Warp only because I'm behind on mana. And Cryptic is sort of a lock piece also. I do want to leave of One Mind because we're trying to draw cards here. So counter the Daybreak. They're getting in with the Glade Cover Scout, and I chose not to block. And in hindsight, if I knew that I was holding up force to counter something like a Daybreak, which might have wanted me to block at that point to preserve my life total, if I was going to counter the Daybreak Cornet, maybe I should have poked in for that 1 point of damage. It's like a slight inefficiency. Now, this was a great draw. We needed a land, and obviously we're going to get a forest. But because of the Mystic Gate, our taps are actually a little bit awkward. Maybe you guys see what I mean, right? Like, if I get a forest and I tap Mystigate and the 2 green sources, then I only have blue up, and I can't cast Ephemerate. I could cast Eternal Witness and Of One Mind, which could be pretty nice. Alternatively, I could filter Snow-Covered Island for white, or white-blue. Get green, go green, green, something, and still have white floating if I want to ephemerate, maybe get like Force of Negation. But for me here, we did hit our 4th land. We can also just hold up Cryptic. That's another option. So another interesting decision point. Cryptic, pretty nice possibility. Eternal Witness, get back Force with Ephemerate. Well, no, Eternal Witness gets back Force anyway, maybe, but Ephemerate, we can't. The thing is, we wouldn't be able to use Ephemerate to Ghost Block, right? Because we have to use the Mystigate mana like right away. So we'd basically just be getting back Uro and Force of Negation, or probably actually Misty Rainforest and Force of Negation. Just like leaving Uro in the graveyard is probably the better decision. Getting a Rainforest just guarantees that we're going to keep hitting our lands. Any thoughts, guys? Is this a Witness turn? Are we doing Ephemerate? Are we doing Of One Mind? Are we just passing with Cryptic up? These are the kind of moments where I feel like you guys might have some real insight that I might have missed, like during the actual match. I'm pretty sure I know what my line was here, but there's no, I mean, there's a bunch of good options, right? Curious. Okay, so Isotope says Witness. I think I'm leaning that way as well, just because they're not going to kill us next turn. We've got time to start trying for the Cryptic loop, right? So, like, let's get our value while we can, rather than being super defensive with Cryptic, I think. So I did filter for double blue. Cast the... Oh, thought about it. I think I changed it to white, which is curious. Let's see how this went, actually. Got back the Force and Ephemerate to get back. Okay, so Uro is a card that I could pitch to Force. That was not the line that I had anticipated or that I remembered. I thought I would have made blue to cast Of One Mind, but in hindsight, I actually think I like this line better. By casting the Ephemerate, not only did I get the Force, but I got an extra blue card to be able to pitch. So maybe you guys agree with that, maybe disagree. You can let me know. I see Isotope is saying Of One Mind. Do you think that the Ephemerate play was sort of objectively incorrect, or what? I finally get in with Coatl here because in order to cast Of One Mind for the discounted cost next turn, if I want to do that, I actually need both of my creatures. I'm certainly not going to block anything. Plus, I have counterspells if they have scary auras. So they're getting in for 3 again. Not really worrying about that. They're going to gain a bunch of life. And they have a Spirit Dancer, which is a little scary. That's like, if we're moving towards a lock, I think they have some main deck paths. Spirit Dancer is a way for them to draw towards ways to interrupt what could potentially be a loop here. So we cast the Rebound. We get it back from the graveyard. Kind of looking to hit lands here. We're a little bit jammed up. So are you guys kind of on the same plan this turn? Are we getting down another Witness and just casting Of One Mind to hit those land drops? That seems like a totally fine decision, honestly. If we go for the Cryptic tap thing now, we do get another draw for a land next turn. We catch the Rebound. If we draw a land, we'll have enough to keep casting Ephemerate and Crypticing. It seems like they're probably not going to kill us next turn. So for me, I think the way that I thought about this, it was rather defensive in multiple ways. I chose to go with Cryptic tapping their team and bouncing Core Spirit Dancer. It basically time warps them. I was hoping, bounce the Core Spirit Dancer. They spend the turn recasting it. We catch the Ephemerate. So we're basically back where we started next turn, hopefully drawing a land so that we can just start cleanly executing a loop. Another way to move aggressively towards the loop would be to either do Witness, get back land, play the land now. The more I think about it, that probably would have been better here. I think I kind of like, in hindsight, better, like, Witness, get back land, but float blue so that I actually cast Of One Mind. I'm going to have the land then, no matter what, because Witness will get it, and then we'll draw a couple of other good things. Maybe I draw another Force or something like that. But as I mentioned, I don't love the idea of letting them untap with Core Spirit Dancer, so I was hyper defensive, and in hindsight, I think I would have played that a little bit differently. So I'm going to tap their team and bounce Core Spirit Dancer. Again, as always with these streams, the whole point is just to get your guys' feedback and try to learn how to play this a little bit better. So it went as I expected. We had our draw, and the deck is insistent on giving us these Eternal Witnesses. So we've got the Cryptic Command just chilling in the graveyard now, but we can't cast it next turn. So I think we're sort of forced into something else here. So let's float some mana, cast Of One Mind. And let's see. I didn't float double blue, and we're still not hitting any lands. So Ephemerate the Witness and get back the Prismatic Vista to get another blue source. Seems pretty good. So this is the turn that I could have taken last turn, basically. Drawing a bunch of cards, trying to advance my board a little bit, making sure, guaranteeing that I'm going to have a 5th land. Now, Teferi, I sort of rushed through that. Teferi bounced the Core Spirit Dancer, which gives me another way to sort of stall the opponent out from drawing a bunch of cards. And getting Teferi on the board means that now, once we start looping, there's really no way for them to interact with us. Okay, so they had a land, they found a land, and they have a Rancor here. So they have first strike. So I countered this only because we really don't want to let them get trample, right? Again, I kind of rushed through that one a little bit there. So what did I pitch to the Force? I pitched the Ice Fang Coatl. In hindsight, maybe it would have been better to pitch the Uro, but maybe because Uro gains life, maybe I thought it was more important. But having death-touching blockers against, they have first strike. I don't know. It's a close call, but I kept the Uro in hand, prevented them from getting trample, and here the opponent is going at my face. I don't think I care to block that, so I'll go down to 6. Opponent gains more life. Kind of stupid. Doesn't really do anything. All right, so now at this point, we do have our loop. We can make blue, 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 and for the Cryptic, and white will... White will let us continue to Ephemerate. Lands would be awesome here, but we didn't hit it, and so we can't even really cast this Hierarch yet. Although, honestly, I guess we could. There's really no reason we need to cast the Ephemerate on this turn cycle, right? So, I do need to cast the Ephemerate on this turn cycle because they don't have the Cryptic in hand. I'm like so all over the place right now. I guess I've just been talking a lot. Okay, so we've got Teferi down. We can safely attack in the air, but I was so weird with my attacks in this particular game. Like, I left the Ice Fang back way more often than I should have. And here I did choose to Cryptic and bounce the Spirit Dancer. Again, I'm just trying to keep them from drawing cards, but I think a much better approach would have been just to tap their team and bounce. I'm not sure how important leaving the Spirit, or getting the Spirit Dancer back in their hand was. I do transition the strategy once they start hitting more lands later in the game. But for now, I just kept bouncing their Core Spirit Dancer. Okay, so keeping them from attacking. I'll start going a little bit faster because, Temple Garden. This is funny because they put it on the Spirit Dancer even though they know that I'm at this point looping a Cryptic Command, and I can just bounce the Spirit Dancer again if I feel like it, in which case the armor just gets lost. Honestly, at this point in the game, it should be clear to you guys that the only out the opponent has is Path to Exile, and they need to do it soon because they need me to be tapped out and without any Ephemerate in hand to be able to get rid of the Witness. I do have extra Witnesses in hand. They don't know that, but this is pretty locked up. So so far this game, there's been a couple of inefficiencies. Like I didn't attack with the Quaddle in a couple of spots. I think my first casting of Cryptic, instead, I should have like gotten ahead on cards by casting the Witness and casting Of One Mind. So Isotope, I think you were on top of that line, but it's not what I chose to do. So I'll just kind of hustle a little bit at this point. We drew a land, which is quite nice. I get to get a forest, play the Hierarch, Ephemerate, get back Cryptic Command. I should attack now in the air for 2. They don't have any reach. At least that's not tapped. Tap their team down, bounce that one more time. They lose an Ethereal Armor. Not a big deal. I probably should be drawing cards rather than bouncing the Spirit Dancer. So they just play out a bunch of stuff. We're going to catch the rebound. Play Soulherder. Attack. So actually, I chose to go with... maybe I shouldn't be going so fast through this here. I played Soulherder. It was like Xaxes mana. Instead of ephemerating, I get the blink off of the Witness and still leave up 4 mana while developing my Soulherder. So just a more efficient line, more productive. So once again, I'm not sure I bounced the Spirit Dancer at this point. I think I should probably just start drawing cards. I think this was another inefficiency. Like I probably should have just drawn a card. I guess the slightly tricky thing is, well, the goal here is I'm trying to just get to a point where I have enough power to attack and win. So at this point, they're all tapped down. If they play another creature, well, that's not a big deal. It doesn't even have any power. They put a Rancor on Core Spirit Dancer. It's just gonna go faster. So I drew Skyclave. This game is obviously won at this point. It's just how fast can I win? So from the point when we effectively locked it out, I might have been like a little bit over 15 minutes. But it takes so many clicks to actually go through all of this stuff. So we're going to blink the Eternal Witness, get back Cryptic on their upkeep. We tap them down, draw on lands, play out a Spirit Dancer, play another Spirit Dancer, play a Rancor. None of this stuff really matters. All that potentially could matter is a Path to Exile, but at this point, not really, since we've got the Ephemerate locked away in hand. So I am escaping Uro here, because I can do that and have enough to leave up Cryptic. I drew a Time Warp, so I can just cast that. It's super over. Let's just sort of see how it wrapped up. Got in for 1 in the air. We take an extra turn after this. We got back Time Warp, Ephemerate, all this stuff. Tap the opponent's team down. Swing for the win. So pretty powerful game 1 out of Soulherder. The only downside to this victory here was that it took me exactly half of my clock to get there. Yes, exactly. Cryptic Command, particularly in conjunction with Teferi, can be a pretty hard lock, very similar to Time Warp. So I think this was the only time in this league where I actually got a Cryptic lock, and it's pretty awesome. But if you take half your time in one game in a match, you have to play really, really fast for the other 2 games. So that was the end of that one. Let's go ahead to game 2. As I've done with the other matches, we should go ahead and get your guys' feedback on how we might want to sideboard for this matchup. So paths, purges, worship, well, you know, what are we bringing in? What are we taking out? Do we have anything that we want? I mean, as I said, we're pretty favored against Boggles, even just at the outset. Yeah, definitely bring in Worship. Path to Exile, on the fence about a little bit. It's nice to have like a couple of answers in the entire deck to like a core spirit answer, because that's a card that can let things like sort of spiral out of control. We do have the Skyclave apparitions, so and you know, like cryptic commands, we can potentially counter it on the way down. So I didn't really feel like I needed to bring paths in. Back when I played different builds that didn't really have, like before Skyclave, I would occasionally bring in some kind of removal for that card. So let's actually check how I sideboarded. So I did bring in Worship, and I took out a single of One Mind. So very, very small sideboarding decision for this game here. Hey, McDurp, welcome. So you missed a couple castings of One Mind. So against a red-white Taxes deck, I think I drew like 10 cards in one game with of One Mind. Oh, and the last game against Boggles, I just drew a bunch of cards with it as well. So hopefully you'll get to see a little bit more of that card in action. I know that's one that you have some doubts about. Obi-Wan Shinobi, hey, welcome to the stream, guys. Playing against Boggles, doing the replay, hoping to get some of your guys' analysis, help me catch some of my mistakes or inefficiencies or inaccuracies. Opponents on the play here, we can see if they kept or mulliganed. They mulliganed to 6. I have to mulligan. I've only got one land. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to have to mulligan to 5 here. You've got some excellent cards, but if you can't cast them... I think the opponent kept on 6, got passed back to us. We go down to 5, cannot cast this Hierarch, but I don't think going down to 4 is going to help us anymore. So I did keep here. I'm not really going to wait for your guys' feedback on this opening hand. It's just a complete mess. So I bottomed a couple cards, and currently can't cast any spells except Force. So... we're hoping that it's a bad mulligan by the opponent. Looks like maybe a bad mulligan since they didn't have a hexproof creature to play on turn 1. That usually means that they just kept like a core Spirit Dancer hand. Time Warp, not what I was looking for. A little bit on the heavy side, but it's something that I can easily pitch to a Force of Negation. So opponent looks like they have a play, and it's Gadok Teague. So Teague is good against Time Warp and against Cryptic Command and against Worship. We don't have a lot of outs to this guy in the main deck. But at the same time, you know, we've been favored against Boggles, like before Skyclave Apparition, before Time Warp combo. We just go so wide, and it's pretty easy to just ghost block and like sort of prevent them from really doing very much. So we'll have to see how this Teague goes. Currently, I can't really cast anything, so let's just sort of keep things going. Continuing to not draw lands. Griff's Boon, this dude's going to take to the skies. I don't really want to counter that. It's just one more power. It doesn't really change the clock too much. And they can very easily follow it up with like a Daybreak Coronet, which would be pretty terrible for us. But it looks like the opponent might just have a bunch of lands in hand. Yeah, Teague is not really that amazing, I agree. I'd be much more scared of like a Boggle in this spot. So we have a bunch of counter spells, but the deck's not really cooperating. Note, I started this match with 12 minutes and 30 seconds, and I used about 20 or 30 seconds like on mulligan decisions. So I'm playing as fast as possible, just passing back to the opponent. At this point, they started with maybe 16 minutes, and if anything, they're just going to use some time off their clock. I didn't really feel... I needed to just scoop, like F6ing is just better, I think. Let the opponent use some clock. They're going for Rest in Peace. I could have countered this, but again, it doesn't really present a clock. I don't have anything going on with the graveyard right now, so I let that resolve. Really looking just for time right now, and I'm only going to counter something that like dramatically increases their clock. So we drew a land, finally. So I should pause and ask you guys, you know, what the play is here. I hustled and just drew that basic forest. Again, trying to maintain my life total. I could have gotten a shock, but getting a forest seemed okay, given sort of the disposition of my hand here. Yeah, Freedy, I know. Do you guys like Hierarch, Teferi, or Oracle here? McDurp says Noble. Freedy says Bounce Teague. And honestly, Freedy, I don't... Well, let's go ahead here. I think Bouncing Teague is actually a pretty solid play. If it were a Boggle, I wouldn't be able to bounce it, but since it was Teague, I was able to bounce it. And since they have Rest in Peace, Griff's Boon is never going to come back. So it's a play that gave me some time. The alternative to play Hierarch would have gotten me ahead in mana, but I like this play. I think it was a pretty good play. All right, nothing to say about this Teague here. Opponent's got a Rancor. That is something that does accelerate the clock while giving Trample and make our potential Ghost and or Chump blocks worse. So I'm going to pitch the other... I guess I had another Teferi in hand, so pitch that thing. Witness, which we can't cast. I think I clicked on Oracle and then decided to do Hierarch. Tick Teferi up, and they'll probably go after Teferi next turn, I imagine. Saving the bounce Teague for one more enchantment, I think. Rancor specifically. Well, Rancor is not that amazing to bounce because it... Oh, well, actually, Rest in Peace is on the board, so everything that falls off when we bounce does get just immediately exiled, even Rancor. So I could see that line for sure. Good call on that one. So if we rewind sort of mentally to leaving Teague on the battlefield, putting a Hierarch down, taking beats from Rancor plus Griff's Boon, it would have been like 5. Oh, that's probably fine, and then we kill 2. We'd have an extra counterspell in hand. Maybe that's the better line. So opponent's going after Teferi here. Note that this does save us some life also, right? Directly cast Teferi and bounce again. What? Are you saying, so I had 2 Teferis in hand, I should have bounced it twice rather than pitching Teferi? I mean, that's a possibility. Directly cast Teferi and bounce again. Well, anyhow, that wasn't the line that McDerp was outlining. McDerp was saying, leave the Gaddock Teague on the board an extra turn. Remember that I drew the second Teferi off of the first Teferi when I minused. So when we were making that decision, we didn't have 2 Teferis in hand. So McDerp was suggesting just playing the Hierarch, and then the next turn playing Teferi, bounce Teague, and sort of get like a sort of more of a 3-for-1 instead of a 2-for-1. Okay, so I think I clicked on Eternal Witness, but then realized that Rest in Peace was on the battlefield, so definitely better to start with the Oracle here. If it does ramp us, we can play Eternal Witness as an extra body. Well, Hierarch's pretty nice. Developing our mana here. So I am playing super duper fast during this match. Obviously, like there's some fine decisions that we're sort of debating here, but I sort of saw a line and took it during the match because I've taken 6 turns in under a minute. So opponent cracks the Horizon Canopy. I guess maybe they don't have too much stuff going on in hand. Teague gets flying, which is a little bit rough for us. That's sort of a clear path to victory for them. These Eternal Witnesses are pretty poor, so we can go ahead and just, I guess, attack. Is that what's happening here? Oh, well, you know, we are sort of racing, right? I am getting in for a nice chunk of damage with Exalted here, and I can't block anyway, right? And, you know, there's the idea that I might want to flash Coatl in, even if it doesn't have Death Touch, just to prevent damage. If I flash it in now and they have a path, for example, they can get rid of it, but I think we kind of need to main phase it and see what we draw. Okay, what are we hitting? Uro is better than Eternal Witness, even if... well, you know what? I backed it up. We'd like bodies on the battlefield at this point. If we're racing... I think gaining the 3 life right now is not that critical. We probably want to increase our clock and then gain more life next turn if that's the case. So they did path my snaky boy, and we'll get another land and pass the turn back to the opponent. They have Daybreak Coronet, which is a 2-turn clock now. Maybe less if we cast Uro. Ephemerate could gain us even more life. But remember, I'm sort of playing the odds on this game. I'm sort of towing the line or walking on a knife's edge between like the value proposition of trying to win this game versus just taking the time that I have to have a good shot in game 3. If I draw a Path to Exile, like, we're immediately just in this, right? So why not play Uro, see what I draw? Probably even want to ephemerate this dude, right? See if I can hit that path. But it looks like the opponent has a path. So I think that was lights out, because we did shock ourselves. Potentially incorrect. And yeah, that was it, basically. Didn't draw the path that we needed. Opponent's getting it in the air. Just going to make them use like 3 more seconds. And on to game 3. I used about 1.5 minutes in that game, and I think the opponent used somewhere between 4 and 5 minutes. So I did my best. We had outs. Gadok Teeg doesn't have hexproof, and you know what? I didn't bring any paths in. So the fact that I lost to a flying Gadok Teeg, I believe, made me sideboard in like one of my paths. We can check that in game 3. See if I actually did make that decision. Okay, let's jump back in. This match was just so wild. Like, the first round, the first game with the Cryptic Loop, mulliganing to 5, not being able to play spells. The opponent won with a flying Gadok Teeg. And I guess we'll be on the play. We'll see what the hand looks like. And we can go ahead and check out the sideboarding, see if I do have any paths in here. No, I guess I decided ultimately not to bring it in. So interesting to see that I don't even have Worship in. I wonder if that has to be a mistake. Is the game glitching here? Because no, my bad. I'm getting tired, guys. I'm getting tired. The fact that I don't see the paths means I did bring them in. I took out a single of one mind, both Time Warps, left in the Cryptics because, again, it does create a bit of a loop by itself. And then we brought in both paths and the Worship, obviously. So Worship is just an excellent card. I can't mulligan this. The only removal that Boggles runs is Path to Exile. So if they do get rid of the Hierarch, they're going to have to path it and give us a land anyway. So here, because we need a lot of blue mana, I think it's a pretty clear choice to go get Breeding Pool. Rest in Peace is pretty strong. But, there are ways to deal with it, and, Skyclave Apparition, Teferi, etc. But maybe Teferi's not the best against it. Opponent kept 7 here. So here's a Slippery Boggle. I'm playing as fast as I can during this entire game. I will pause if there are decision points. So already getting a little backed up. Fortunately, we have a snake to hopefully draw that land, or at least, get the land on the battlefield right away. Okay, so missing a land drop. Not the best way to start the last game. Opponent hitting their land drops. Rancor, pretty awesome on turn 2. And Grispoon. So flying trample 4-1. We do have a way to potentially get them with this Ice Fang Coatl. They don't have first strike, and being able to kill their creature, even taking a bit with trample, definitely a win for us if it comes off that way. So, continuing to not draw lands. You know what? In hindsight, I think I might have sort of punted in this spot. Oh, no. Okay. For some reason, I was thinking I cast the snake, but I do have Of One Mind, and hopefully McDerp is here watching this. So, Of One Mind there. Pretty slick, right? I mean, drew us into 2 cards. Skyclave, pretty nice. Now we can play this Hallowed Fountain. Obviously untapped. We're going to pass the turn. Try to get this Slippery Boggle to attack. And try to take him out with the Ice Fang Coatl. Okay, so Spirit Dancer. We were hoping that they don't cast any first strike stuff. And a Rancor. The Rancor is going on top of the Slippery Boggle. Gonna make it a 6-1. We could still block it and kill it with our Coatl, which would put us in a good spot because we can then untap and kill the core Spirit Dancer. So, are they going to attack? No. Now, I had a long conversation in the Discord with Alicia about whether this attack was correct or not. I feel like with the aggro deck, you kind of have to get in. Like, how are you wasting this turn not getting your 5 damage? You know, like Core Spirit Dancer, you're going to get 2 Rancors when this thing dies. Core Spirit Dancer gets +2/+2 for each aura. That means each Rancor is +4/+2. So that's +8/+4, making this thing an 8/6 with trample. I think you kind of have to attack here. In my opinion, you guys can weigh in. I'm gonna get the snake down on the battlefield. I mean, obviously, it would have ended up being poor for the opponent because I could have untapped and just blown up their Core Spirit Dancer. So Freedy wouldn't have attacked. That's super interesting. After talking through it with Alicia, I came to the idea that they're probably trying to draw towards like some first strike to get a little bit stronger, and we'll see what they have next turn. Maybe they have something in hand that they couldn't cast this turn. So McDerp says they're there to turn sideways. I think yeah, but the thing is that Coatl blocking this thing is not so terrible for the Boggle deck because they're still getting in for 5 damage, putting me to 6, untapping, playing Rancor, 2 Rancors, and making an 8/6 out of this Core Spirit Dancer. If I'm at 6 life, this thing's dead. I don't even have enough power on the battlefield to stop that from killing me. So, I mean, it's just on the board, right? They are going to get these Rancors back, and this Core Spirit Dancer will be an 8/6 with trample. So if I don't have a way to kill the Core Spirit Dancer, you feel like the Boggles player is thinking, I don't have removal in the deck because it's a hexproof deck, right? Well, I could, but I think as a Boggles player, you have to be not afraid of removal, like because you're playing hexproof. You assume that your opponents are boarding out all of their removal because it can't target, right? So I think it was the wrong decision, even though it ended up being probably the right decision for the opponent, since I had the Skyclave in hand, ready to blow up the Spirit Dancer. Let's continue. Drew a Hierarch. We'd really like to hit some lands. Okay, well, not hitting lands. A bazillion cards in hand. So many options. This is where, I've got enough time to sort of calculate a little bit, but I have to think fast. They are threatening to sort of take things over with Flying Trample, drawing a bazillion cards. What is the line here, guys? Well, Freedy, I mean, some people bring in removal, and I do have 2 paths to try to hit the Spirit Dancer, and I know that some players do that, but I know, speaking from experience, that I have boarded out all of my removal against Boggles at certain points, right? So I think as a Boggles player, I don't know, you've got the win here, so you should probably go for it. Now, this all comes with a huge caveat of not knowing what's in the opponent's hand. They could have some massive follow-up that I might not know about. I'm going to run to the bathroom again. I've been drinking way too much water. I want you guys to think about what you want to do on this turn. Remember that we're low on time, have to think pretty fast, but there's so many decisions to be made. So give it a think, and I'll be back. Okay. So after all that time, you only have. Oh wait, I see. I've got a few things here. Okay, cool. So Skyclave the Spirit Dancer to Fairy, then bounce. What? Am I bouncing the Spirit Dancer? I guess. I mean, we can just about cast anything in our hand, right? We could go like get another snake down to this. If this guy didn't attack this turn, maybe he's even less likely to attack next turn if we've got multiple flying blockers. That would have the upside of allowing us to play a Hierarch and expand our mana. The upside isn't worth the risk. Freedy says Apparition the Spirit Dancer. McDerp says Skyclave the Spirit Dancer. So I think you guys have it, right? So looks like I was thinking about casting a snake here. I did. That's so funny. I drew a cryptic and I played. I guess I really wanted. Look, my thinking here, and you guys can let me know if you agree. Here now, is I had the cryptic in hand. I knew that I could tap their team and get another turn. I knew that part of the reason playing Hierarch out is good is that playing Skyclave Apparition, you really want 4 mana to be able to ephemerate when it gets played, right? It's pretty sketchy. I agree, it's pretty sketchy. So Skyclaving the Spirit Dancer might have been the better play. But playing the Ice Fang gave me a chance to hit land. Unfortunately, it didn't hit land, but now 2 Cryptics, even without a loop, gives us 2 turns to help stabilize, right? So passing to the opponent here, they had a chance to just kill us, right? Like, if they go, like, 2 or 3 auras, you lose, then that would have been rough. But since you guys kind of already know the outcome, didn't happen. Okay, so Daybreak Coronet kind of explains the non-attack, because now their hexproof creature has first strike and is significantly more buff. All right? Okay, so opponent plays a fetch land, goes straight to attacks, which I breathed a huge sigh of relief, because getting in for 9 is not going to kill us. If we get to untap, at the very least, we should be able to Cryptic their team down. So opponent gets in for 9. A little obnoxious that now it has vigilance, so we can't really even attack. No. This guy never loses hexproof. That's his basic ability, is just has hexproof all the time. that would be pretty funny if it lost it when it tapped. Okay, what are we gonna do this turn? Okay, well, we can't pay 2 life for that unless we play Uro and then we play that, but obviously incorrect, right? So we'll play that tapped. And is there a clear option? Like, are you guys totally on top of the line that we have to take here? I mean, you could play Uro and Ephemerate. That gains a bunch of life, right? Playing out a 3rd Coatl will give us Death Touch, but first strike, right? Why didn't I attack with Oracle last turn? That's a good question. It might have been an inaccuracy. I might have just been thinking too much about the clock. Whenever you can get in for clean damage, you should do it. But I have to say that when I'm trying to prioritize, like, my brain cells, when there's very little time, in the Boggles matchup, I'm not trying to race them at this point in the game. I'm trying to just establish a lock. And thinking about whether or not to attack with Oracle, I guess it just wasn't high on my list of priorities. And if I did have both Hierarchs out, I probably should have attacked. Apologize for the inaccuracy. But for here, in order to not die, I think I just have to play Cryptic and just draw a card. So let's see if that's what I did. Kind of annoying that I can't really attack. Yeah. So again, returning the core Spirit Dancer to hand, trying to prevent them from drawing cards. I guess my point of view is that I've got so many cards in hand that I don't necessarily need to draw cards as much as I need to prevent them from drawing cards, if that makes sense. But in hindsight, I'm not sure that that's correct. I'm trying to draw to lands, like no matter what, and then lock pieces. So in this case, like an Eternal Witness, right? So I think I would have preferred in hindsight to have drawn a card rather than bounce the Spirit Dancer. So are you guys on the same page? Do you think drawing a card is better than bouncing the Spirit Dancer? Let me know what you think. Okay, so we tap that dude down. Opponent's clearly going to play their Spirit Dancer back out. Griff's Boon, another Griff's Boon on the Slippery Bubble. Yeah, so in hindsight, I'm pretty sure that's the correct play, to just try to draw toward lands. Okay, well, we hit a fetch, which means now we can at least cast Cryptic and Ephemerate like a snake to try to draw some more cards. Now, we tap this guy down with Cryptic, so once again, I could get in with the Oracle. I'm not sure if I actually do or not. Oh my good. Oh wait. I forgot I had two hierarchs, so that gives me extra mana to get another creature down on the board. All my guys have Death Touch now, but it's a little bit sketchy, like because of the First Strike and the Trample, right? That's just gonna kill me. So let me slow down my thought process. The clock is not a thing anymore. Let's be calm. Make sure that if so let's see. Can't see if they have any cards in hand. Why not? Isn't it visible right over here? They have 4 cards, and previous turn they had 3 cards. So I'm sorry, when was I dead to Path? Freedy? I'm not sure I understand the point. When was I dead to Path? Because I tapped and I bounced this thing. Anyhow, so I had this mana, and I felt like using 2 to get down a Coatl right now. Did I play a land on this turn? I did, and I played the Misty, got this. This couldn't have drawn me another land, so I'm not sure like that was necessary to play it on my main phase. Oh my goodness, good call. I'm not sure if Boggles players are that sophisticated, but that's pretty next level. Pathing their own Spirit Dancer. Wow. That's exactly why I do these streams. That's super next level. Thank you for pointing that out. So anyhow, I played a snake main phase for sort of no reason. I don't know why I would attack with 2 of these guys rather than 1 with double exalted. What am I even doing here? In case they have a path, I guess that's what I was thinking. But again, I was really feeling the pressure of the clock. I know how long it takes to, even once I get a lock going, how long it takes to execute it. So take it for what it's worth. The inefficiency of attacking for 2 instead of 3. Maybe even baiting out a path there is fine, just to get my land, right? So should have attacked with 1 without a question. That much is clear. So I did let them go to their turn there because I think I was sort of over bouncing the Spirit Dancer. So did tap on upkeep. I'm going to tap during the beginning of combat here. And I believe I started drawing cards. The deck is not giving me lands here. They have 4 cards in hand currently. They have a Rest in Peace, which is going to be kind of nasty because we're trying to establish some kind of loop. Currently, we have only an Uro in hand that cares about the graveyard. We have a Skyclave Apparition. They're getting rid of our Cryptic commands, right? Which is very, very frightening. Seems like it might almost be game over, right? It's actually a very good draw out of the opponent. 3 cards left. We draw up to 7 here. Can't do anything with that unless we play Uro to gain life. So what's the play, guys? I see, McDerp. Yeah, no, I definitely that play where pathing the spirit dancer. Like I guess I'm relatively new to playing Cryptic Command, and so I'm not that wasn't on my radar at all. So do you guys see a clear line here? Because we finally have mana, we have a lot of cards in our hand. We don't have a Cryptic though. We don't have a Time Warp. So they are gonna take their turn, and they are going to probably attack. Skyclave, both Rancor, seems pretty good. King Magic, welcome to the stream. I don't know if you're new to the stream. Your name doesn't seem very familiar. Skyclave, bounce Skyclave. Are you saying, let's see. You're saying play Skyclave. Oh, are you saying blink it with Ephemerate maybe? So yeah, I mean Skyclave is definitely important here, I think. So get it down. Now, typically, when you have Ephemerates in hand, you want to use them right away, right? That way, they're not going to exile something, and then later when I blink, they'll get a creature, on and on and on. But in this spot, it seemed like it might actually be kind of cool to let them attack. However, let's see what they have here. They have First Strike from Daybreak Coronet, and another Rancor. So if we double blink Skyclave on their turn, get rid of Daybreak Coronet, get rid of the second Rancor, suddenly they're just flying without First Strike, and we could potentially just kill them with an Icefang Coatl. Oh, sorry about that. I'll make it a point to remember your name then. Second Ephemerate was such a good draw there. So are we just unloading all the Ephemerates now, or waiting, or what's going on here? So much stuff to calculate when the opponent has just exiled your potential win condition, and you're under 7 minutes, and you kind of know your only way to win is to sort of go infinite, so to speak. Very, very tricky spot here. So I play Soulherder. That was my play. Do you guys like it? Do you guys hate it? It's a little sketchy because it only lets us blow up one thing, but we really only need to blow up that Rancor right now. And if we get to untap, we're in a very good spot with Skyclave on the battlefield and double Ephemerate in hand. Soulherder is the slightly riskier play, but it uses our mana more efficiently and potentially just kind of opens the value floodgates. Yeah, leaving up 2 Ephemerates I think was clearly safer. However, yeah, it was safer. It was safer for sure. So hard to say which one is correct, right? Maybe the safer line is correct. Maybe getting down the Soulherder and trying to pull ahead of a game where we're clearly behind is correct. Who knows? Really depends on what they draw, what they're working with in hand. They are going to get a 1/1, but that's the least of my concerns. Okay, opponent goes straight to combat. They've got their First Strike online, so easy chump block. We dodged a bullet for 1 turn. But note that this is actually kind of cool. If you guys are unfamiliar with it, rest in peace. When creatures die, they actually don't. Well, they don't go to the graveyard. They get exiled instead. So the creature is being exiled from the battlefield. So Soulherder actually gets grown by rest in peace, which is pretty nice. More free damage missed. Yep. Sorry about that. I think it was just clock problems, like just the pressure. Opponent has another Boggle, 2 cards in hand. A third Ephemerate. So that seems like a pretty good draw right there. So first things first, we should check in on how much mana we have. Still 6. So we could get like Teferi down, leave up triple Ephemerate. Seems pretty good at this point. Actually, we're in quite a good spot because no matter what, we can just like blink Skyclave Apparition to blow up, for example, Daybreak Coronet. Might actually be smarter maybe to go after the Griff's Boons since they're granting evasion and we might run out of flying blockers eventually. So kind of tricky, but you guys have any ideas about what you like to do here? Opponent's sitting on 2 cards. Pretty clear that they don't have a path because they would have probably just dealt with Soulherder by now. I mean, it's kind of nice getting Teferi down. What would we bounce if we got Teferi down? You know, we should think more about like what we want to get rid of. I think getting rid of Rest in Peace is quite important, right? Because if we draw a Time Warp eventually, remember that both of our cryptics have been exiled. Drawing a Time Warp eventually, we'd love to just take infinite turns and be able to start whittling down their board and attacking. If we pop the boons, the Coronet falls off. That's for sure. That's actually I'm always thinking about that, but it didn't register it for me in this game. So that's that was a misstep on my part. So thanks very much for pointing that out again. McDerp says Teferi plus. Well, it's time to make a play. So let's get Teferi on the battlefield. So they're trying. Okay, so in response to Teferi, because they wouldn't be able to play at instant speed, it turns out they may have drawn a path or they've been sitting on a path. But time to cast an Ephemerate. And you know, what are we going to exile here? I was super time pressured, so I think I might have actually gone after the Daybreak Coronet, though I think it's one of the least important permanents at this point. And in order to not give them unnecessary tokens, I decided that I might as well just cast, or I thought about casting another one, but didn't. It's all so close, right? Like, do I want to continue holding up Ephemerates, which give me like ultimate flexibility, particularly with Teferi on the board? Or do I want to just rip them all off right now and just get rid of a bunch of stuff? And honestly, the only way I lose this game from this point is if I time out, because I've got Skyclave on the board. If they find a Rancor or a Spirit Mantle, I can always just Ephemerate the Skyclave, even twice, just to get rid of it. But I do need to get rid of Rest in Peace to even give me the chance of eventually recycling these Ephemerates. Okay, so we got rid of the core Spirit Dancer, the idea being just to limit the amount of cards that they can draw. I actually minused. I wanted to draw cards. I was very low on time. And at this point, you guys, well, Clock is their win con for sure, but those of you who have actually played Soulherder on Magic Online would appreciate how many triggers there are. Like how many times you have to click things like at the end step and for fetch lands and Teferi and Ephemerates with rebounds. I've got a lot of Magic to play, but why don't we just sort of go through it and see a little bit of how it played out. Okay, blinking the Skyclave Apparition, getting rid of the Daybreak Coronet. Again, not the most important. I think I probably should have been focusing like from the get-go on Rest in Peace. Here's a Glade Cover Scout. Opponent is going pretty wide, but we are wider. Passing the turn, still can't crack our fetch. Ephemerate. I'm trying to draw cards here. There is one thing that really would accelerate how fast I could potentially win this game. If you guys know the card that I'm talking about, like from the Discord, maybe don't mention it, but honestly, I use the pad. People have like given me like WTF responses in the past to that, but I've gotten very accustomed to using it. And there's nothing really wrong with a mouse. It's just with the setup that I have, I don't really love like the tick 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 sound that you sometimes get with mice on stream. So I know the deck. I know how fast I need to play, and I'm just fine with the trackpad. Anyhow, there is a card that I'm trying to draw to that will rapidly accelerate the pace at which I can win this game. Maybe some of you weren't here when I was sideboarding, but I brought in one card in particular that's rather strong against Boggles, particularly in this kind of a spot. So during my end step, I blinked the Coatl to try to draw the card I'm looking for. No, sorry, that was the Ephemerate Rebound, right? So here's an Uro. I'm trying to just keep drawing cards. Possible I should have waited to play the Uro until Rest in Peace is out of the picture. So definitely not playing super optimally here. Laplace John gave me a salty chat response when I was beating him down because I was using my mouse pad on my laptop. Well, yeah, that'll happen. Yes, Lonely Isotope is on the card that I was talking about. If we get Worship down, then we don't really care about their attacks anymore, and we can start to attack much more freely. As things stand, we need to leave defense up. So play another Hierarch, open up our mana a little bit, tick Teferi up. I guess I can get in with pretty big Soulherder here. Creature gets exiled, he grows. I blinked a snake, drew a card. So I'm playing as fast as I can. You can see my clock is going down fairly rapidly. Opponent tapping a bunch of lands. So they got Lurrus and they're playing Lurrus. Of course, we can deal with a whole bunch of stuff with these Ephemerates. So I think end step, it's time to just like deal with a bunch of their permanents. So I'm going to target Lurrus, and then with that on the stack, I'm going to respond and target Rest in Peace. So we're going to ultimately exile a 2 CMC. The 3 CMC will get permanently exiled with no token. Cracking the fetches to thin the deck. Really not afraid of their attacks. Our board is significantly wide here. Significantly wider than theirs. 2 rebounds, which will go to the graveyard. That weighed into my decision to actually rip those Ephemerates there. All right, so all about drawing those cards. I'm targeting an Ice Fang. Maybe I should have targeted the Oracle. Okay, we're not getting to that Worship. Can still continue getting in with this Soulherder, but notice that the clock is a minute lower than it was recently. There's just a lot of game actions. Need to attack as fast as I can. Actually, I chose to get in with a Coatl there. Interesting. So here's an Uro that's actually going to go to the graveyard this time. I'm like rushing because I feel the pressure of the clock. I need to like relax. Okay, cast that Oracle, hit a land, cast Witness, get back an Ephemerate. Remember, all I'm trying to do is hit. We're gonna blink a snake, have an extra blocker, trying to hit that Worship. Drew a Path to Exile, not the most useful card. It gets rid of a blocker, accelerates our potential alpha strike. They have another flyer. We're at 5 life, but we've got 2 flying blockers. Remember that I also, of course, have Skyclave, and at any point I can just get rid of like their Griffspoon or something. So flash in a snake. Thin the deck, get a basic Plains, Ephemerate, an Oracle, still trying to hit that Worship. Found another land. Go get another basic, continue thinning the deck. Hit that snake. Doing this, really like... The only thing like that's interesting here is how fast I was playing, how many clicks were happening. Drew the Worship. I've got 2 minutes. They're at 25 life. Can we do it? Can we get there? Tick Teferi up. Slam the Worship. Attack. Now that you have Worship, you attack with everything basically. Everything except, the Skyclave is not really important to attack with. Not sure why I left a Coiling Oracle back. Oh, maybe because the Illusion token was there, but whatever. Like, I think you're still attacking with that creature. Okay, they're just blocking some stuff. Kind of weird blocks, but, the opponent's also sort of running low on time. At this point, I was like, F6 to attacks, get in there. And I think at a certain point, I hit, like, no on Soulherder's triggers. I may have actually been supposed to say no to Soulherder even there, just to start reducing the triggers. But I felt like I had sufficiently turned the corner. We're going for Hyena Umbra. That's pretty fine. Daybreak Coronet. Not sure I had to counter that, but I did. Okay, we're going to path that token. Soulherder is a 2020. And, you know, we've got Teferi bounces. We've got a path. We've got Skyclave. I'm going to get rid of that first strike on that Hyena Umbra. And just turn my team sideways here. Okay, looks like they might have like one more block here. And I am still slightly above 1 minute. Tick to ferry up. I believe this is when I said no to Soulherder. I guess I said yes to Soulherder. Risky. Takes those extra couple of seconds. Opponent just really trying to time me out. This is where we just turn everybody sideways. Still not Skyclave, though, because I don't want to give him another blocker, but it's funny because they had to block the Soulherder, so they couldn't have blocked the Skyclave, but, you know, you can't do all those calculations so quickly when you're at, like, 1 minute. So I said no to Soulherder there. Soulherder's a 21-21. They play a blocker, but they're just dead on board. They might not realize it yet, but just, like, right-click, attack with everybody, even the hierarchs getting in for the beats. Oof, and that's it. So ending the match with under a minute left on the clock. Almost just about 10 cards left in the library. We drew 24 more cards than the opponent. Worship really kind of opened it up for us, let us turn our creatures sideways. Definitely a couple of inaccuracies on my side of the board. A couple of attacks that I missed, so thank you to McDerp for pointing those out. So yeah, in the end, we actually didn't combo out, right? We didn't draw Time Warps and Eternal Witnesses and deal with Rest in Peace and then get a loop going. Really, this is kind of on the back of Soulherder in a way, right? It's what really forced them to start chump blocking. Whittled down their board really rapidly. Yeah, and then just Worship doing Worship things, making it basically impossible for the opponent to win if I don't time out. So it was a pretty crazy match. So it was part of the reason I wanted to do this replay is to show you guys the crazy magic that happened. So far we've played against Tybalt's Trickery, Red-White Taxes, Red-White Burn, and now Boggles. Going for the 5-0. You can see I've been doing so well with this build lately, like over 1800, just feeling great about the positioning of the deck. All right, let me say off the bat that this is going to be a much, much faster match. Not nearly as long and grindy as that previous one. Before I jump into it, I want to mention that below the stream, under the About tab, there is a button that says Donate. If you guys want to send $1 or $2 my way, that's how you can do it. The button will take you to a page. You can type in a message. An animation should pop up, and you know a silly robot woman should announce your message. So if you feel like supporting the stream, I would appreciate it. But with that said, let's go ahead and see how round 5 went. I said hi, good luck to the opponent. I was pretty nervous, and they didn't respond. This is a fine opening hand in the blind. We actually knew that the opponent had Lurrus as their companion. And, you know, a snake with an ephemerate is a fine opening hand against, like, a Lurrus deck. We're expecting, like, maybe black-red prowess. Like, that would be my go-to. Or black-red shadow. I don't know what, like, the best name is for it. So this was a keep for me. We've only got fetches, so, you know, play one of the Misties, and let's see what the opponent's working with. Okay, Godless Shrine. Not what I was expecting. I was getting increasingly nervous because I didn't really know what to expect. But it's a dead giveaway here. Or at least it seems like it should be. Steel Shaper's Gift. So they're searching their library for an equipment card. I feel there may be some hammers in my near future here. So let me open that up again and continue. See what card they revealed. Oh, I think I clicked the wrong thing. So they found a Paradise Mantle of all things. Sorry. So I guess Paradise Mantle is something you go for if you're sort of short on mana. Kind of a weird inclusion. I really expected a hammer there. Is this a particular build? Are you guys familiar with Paradise Mantle in Hammer Time decks? Well, here's a Memnite. So at this point, I was still thinking it might be some like crazy infinite combo where they're like making lots of mana. Okay, so Hallowed Fountain tapped. Drew a basic, probably not the best. We're really looking to get Cryptic mana online, regardless of whether they're trying to combo out or get at us with hammers. Cryptic is going to be a very important tool. It's stock, interesting, cool. Are most Hammer Time decks black and white? I think some of them that I've seen in the past are like red-white. But anyhow, we can pass the turn. Opponent's going to equip and play a land. Thought seizing me. I thought for a second here about whether I would let the opponent choose to take the Quaddle out. But I think getting a creature on the battlefield, particularly a flying creature, is pretty important. Because a lot of times playing against Hammer Time, you're just treading water, trump blocking until you draw like a real answer. So I ultimately decided I needed to cast this Icefang Quaddle. Drew a Teferi, which is another very interesting, enticing choice that the opponent might go for. And they did take the Teferi, interesting. They took the card that I drew right off the top there. So here's a Colossus Hammer. I drew another land. Played my fetch because I really would rather not draw more lands. So we've got Ephemerate up here for a nice clean ghost block. If you're thinking about ghost blocking, for those of you less familiar with the deck, you typically don't want to get in for what appears to be free damage, because then if you want to block, you have to Ephemerate and then actually lose your creature. The idea with ghost blocking is you set up the block and then you Ephemerate, so you get to keep your creature while also preventing the damage, right? Our 1 point of damage is super inconsequential. All right, so the opponent has Pure Steel Paladin, so all the pieces are coming together here. Another Colossus Hammer. So it's getting pretty gross now. All right, so they've got Equip 0. They put 1 on the Memnite, 2 on the Memnite. It's a 21-21. The deck is doing what it wants to do. We are going to Ghost Block. It's a pretty amazing aspect of these Ephemerate decks, is you get to just basically ghost this 21 points of damage, like, while drawing cards. Pretty powerful. Okay. So remember, at this point, I'm pretty nervous. The opponent's attacking with 21-21s. They have a potential, like, Infect win, if they manage to get rid of the Icefang Quaddle. So we go to the end step. Well, before that, they shift around one of the hammers. Go to the end step. I crack the Misty Rainforest. And I'm thinking real quick about like what colors to get. I see in my hand that I don't have a lot of green. Maybe I want to cast an Eternal Witness, right? So I just about punted this game away right now. All I should have been thinking about is casting Cryptic Command. But all of the other conditioning that I have had with this deck about how to develop the mana, outside of Cryptic Command, would say to get green mana here. So I got green mana here, and literally like half a second after this, I think I like yelled out loud at myself. I forget what I said, but it probably wasn't family friendly. So we're going to catch this Ephemerate with the Icefang. I mean, we're not just strictly just dead yet. I mean, Force could be useful. Might as well play another fetch land here. Actually, I guess we're trying to save some life points, so go with the basic. I mean, who knows? Who knows what to do? I mean, really, like, I should have gotten a blue land here. That's the most important thing. Okay, 3 Colossus Hammers. I think I'm going to just hardcast Force here. I did think about it for a little while. I had nothing else to do this turn, and Like, let's just think for a second. Assuming that they don't have another land, is there a way that they could just force a win here if they resolve this Colossus Hammer, right? So I don't really think so. If they strap this onto the Ink Moth, actually, it would force my hand, I think, because if they had 3 creatures, right, I'd have to block the Ink Moth. Oh, but they're not actually equipping this yet, right? Oh, they are, because they have the Pure Steel Paladin, right? So they can activate the Ink Moth, put this on it. Oh, but then it loses flying. But it's still just fine. They're getting in with, yeah, this would lose the game for me. So I had to counter it. So that was the thought process. Yeah, McDerp, I know. Isn't that like the worst punt ever? I was, oh my god, what am I doing? What am I doing? So anyhow. Opponent gets in. Got to block the lethal, right? Got to block the infect damage. But the fact that I drew the force there was actually pretty clutch. I mean, if I drew another like creature, it would have been fine too. But it would have, yeah. Another creature would have let me stay alive, but the force let me prevent them from just winning there. Which then, now I have 2 cards in my hand that can still give me an extra turn for each of them. So, not completely out of it yet, and honestly, not really sure. Ultimately, like if I wanted even Cryptic up there, the way that things worked out. Okay, so we get to tread water like an extra turn. This is a nice example of a game that's very particular to my build. So for those of you who play like radically different builds, like Urian with Avalanche Riders, no Time Warps, what happens with hands like this is you get to push out so many lands, and then eventually, you know, you can hit with any of these next 3 or 4 turns. I get to hit an Eternal Witness and try to start some kind of lock, right? So here we might as well take the free turns, might as well thin the deck a little bit. Oh, hey, Obi-Wan Shinobi, thanks so much for the subscription. That's amazing. Really appreciate it. Okay, so let's take our extra turn. Opponents just, oh, well, that was a very good draw. That means we can, effectively what that means, given the state of our hand right now, is that we have at least 1 more turn than we had before we cast the Eternal Witness, because when these lands are done being deployed, we will have 7 lands out, which means, well, actually, yeah, it means Eternal Witness plus get at least a Cryptic Command back. So let's go ahead and continue thinning the deck, continue taking extra turns. I mean, all that's missing now is an Ephemerate, right? I mean, I've played so many leagues where I go like 4-0, and then I mulligan to 5, and the opponent just runs over me with the nuts. In this game, I punted, and the deck just like refuses to let me lose. All right. So what's going on here now? I can hide this. Play the Witness. We have Cryptic Mana up, right? We go green, green, white. Grab a Time Warp. And I think everything's just pretty much locked up at this point, as ridiculous as it seems. Like, there's nothing the opponent can do here. I thought about it. It's like, is there any card that they play that lets them equip the Colossus Hammer? Like, say I tap their team down at the start of combat. Can they activate Inkmoth Nexus? And, you know, Pure Steel Paladin gives 0 to equip, but you still can't equip at instant speed. So I was pretty sure I was in the clear here. I think some of these decks might play red because there's a card, an instant that like lets you put an equipment from your hand or something like at instant speed. Excuse me. But this deck is not playing red. So I was pretty sure that I was, the opponent thought for a while about like reallocating equipment. They went to the start of combat, and, you know, I don't have a choice. I have to tap them down. I think my hands were like shaking here. Just like I had punted, I somehow drew exactly what I needed. Opponent in response to Cryptic activated their Inkmoth Nexus, showing you the sophistication of Hammer Time players. No offense to anybody who plays Hammer Time, but that's like exactly what you shouldn't do. It just makes no sense at all. I mean, can we appreciate how ridiculous that is? I'm telling the opponent, like, I'm going to tap all your creatures right now. And they're like, well, let me give you another creature to tap. Like, hang on, hang on. So they went to their second main phase. They play a Cranial Plating. And that's it. It's all over. They got no creatures. I'm taking extra turns. I'm ephemerating. Well, I'm going to attack first. Gonna ephemerate. Gonna get back the Time Warp. Now, you know, we can pause here, take a breath, and try to think about sequencing. Like, I'm going to ephemerate here, so the Eternal Witness is not going to be able to attack, right? So there are some ins and outs to, like, when you want to cast the ephemerate. But I think it's only really relevant, like, if you already... If you're taking an extra turn already and you're not expecting a rebound. So I'm not going to get into that too much, but this is nice because it's something that might make me win slightly faster, but at this point it's all just about clicking fast. This is a deck that plays super fast, and honestly, like, I'm not that close to timing out here, so we're going to take our extra turn. We're going to ephemerate. Since we're not attacking with the Witness, you know, we're really not dealing damage. So what happens with these infinite turns with these Soulherder builds is eventually you get like a couple of snakes out. You start chipping in for two points of damage here, 2 points of damage there. Looks like I had enough mana to play Uro. Drew a snake, pretty nice. We can crack this fetch, thin the deck out a little bit, increase our resources. I don't know how I got away with this game, guys. After punting with my Temple Garden. So this is an example here. I'm taking the extra turn. We didn't cast Ephemerate yet, so let's get in for the attack, right? I guess sort of an every other turn thing, basically. You're gonna catch the rebound sometimes. Other times, you can take the extra turn and then wait. I don't know. Whatever. My brain is sort of fried right now. We're gonna take the extra turn. We're gonna play a bunch of creatures, and I'm just gonna click as fast as I can. Ephemerate, catch the rebound. Get an extra Time Warp, play the Time Warp, swing for 2, and you know, like, things are getting closed out here. Time Warp, swing. It's a 2-turn clock. We don't even need to cast. Well, I guess we do need to take an extra turn, right? But that's the last one we need. Swing. Very nice. Okay, so we got there despite the punt in game 1. I think that Hammer Time is another kind of good matchup for us, like Boggles, because we do jam up the board. We have things like Skyclave Apparition to be able to get rid of their equipment and stuff like that. Even easier than against Boggles because there's no hexproof over there. Whew. Okay, so it's traumatic reliving that moment. Let's go ahead and see game 2. Opponent is going to be on the play. Let's see if they keep. Let's see what our opening hand looks like. Maybe you guys have something to say about whether it's a keep or not. So the opponent's on the play. Let's see if they keep. They mull to 6. For me, this is like slam dunk. I think I said out loud, like, let's go, because it's got Skyclave. It's got the Soulherder to bounce the Skyclave and blow stuff up. It's even got the Ephemerate to get extra blowing upness. So McDerp, the first 3 matchups were Teferi's Trickery, Red-White Taxes, and then Red-White Burn. And the Burn matchup was pretty spectacular. In game 3, they came at me with the absolute nuts. 3 creatures on the first couple turns with a bunch of burn spells, but on my turn 3, I think I played Uro and ephemerated it twice. Gained 9 life, ramped a bunch of lands, drew a bunch of removal. Ugh, it was crazy magic. Like, I shouldn't have been able to win against Burn, but Uro just proved how broken he was. Opponents mulliganing pretty hard in this game. They're starting the game with 5 cards in hand. They got a Silent Clearing, thinking about tapping for white, but then they go for Thoughtseize. It's a couple of options here. They could, it's rough for them, obviously, because if they take any card other than Witness, Witness can eventually get back what they take. So removal is the clear choice, I think. But I don't have lands to actually cast my removal yet. So they could take the Hierarch, hope that I don't draw lands, give themselves time to draw into whatever they need after their mulligan. So, I mean, what do you guys think they should take here? I think since I can get back the Skyclave later with Eternal Witness, their best bet maybe is to take the Hierarch. But the fact that they mulliganed hard to 5 and they're not starting off with any kind of crazy fast combo win means that I'm just like heavily favored whatever they take. So I think they did end up taking the Skyclave. Can't blame them. I mean, it's the only card that's really directly threatening their strategy, and it does take an extra turn since I'll have to use Ewit to get it back. Temple Garden, let's play the Hierarch, and Thoughtseize into that 7 is a scoop. Yeah, probably. Obi-Wan Shinobi says Noble. I explained, I think I like that choice too. What does the opponent have for turn 2? Well, Stoneforge is pretty nice. They've also got an Ink Moth, so they've got a threat, and now presumably they've got a nice equipment. They found a Cranial Plating. Interesting choice. I guess they don't have like a Pure Steel. So they played another Ornithopter. We know the only card in their hand is a Cranial Plating. So I was getting pretty excited at this point since I had complete information. I drew another land even, which actually makes Sky App from the graveyard much better because I'm going to be able to cast Ephemerate with it. So play Breeding Pool, play Eternal Witness, get back Skyclave Apparition. Opponent is on 2 mana with a Cranial Plating in hand. So they think, and they play the Cranial Plating. They don't play a land. They have 1 card stranded in hand. And yeah, I mean, this is just time to sort of break out the champagne right now because this is the point of no return Hammer Time deck. Skyclave Apparition. Let's target that Cranial Plating. And I thought a little bit about what the second target should be. I don't really care about them paying 2 mana to cheat equipment into play. I do kind of care about their evasive attackers. I do also care about their artifact count. Again, for things like Cranial Plating, for things like Pure Steel Paladin with Metalcraft. So I think I just targeted an Ornithopter, which has the additional upside of never ever having the possibility to give them a token, since it's a 0-drop, right? So, does the opponent scoop yet? They scoop. So anyhow, I got a nutty 7, perfectly suited for the matchup. The opponent mulliganed in the second game. For once, I got just kind of a nice, relaxing final game while cruising to a 5-0. And yeah, no, felt very good. Tomorrow they publish the Modern League results, and my deck is so unique that I can't imagine it not getting published. So looking forward to that. I think it would probably be like maybe my 5th published result with the Soulherder deck. I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe 4th, maybe 6th. I don't know. I think it's 5th. But anyhow, was very, very happy. I thought the deck performed very well. If we want to take a final look at the build, I think that would be sort of prudent. So I know that McDerp, who's actually with us now, was sort of down on Of One Mind. But honestly, I've always been a big fan of it. DV Neil, a stream sort of chat regular, was here earlier during the red-white taxes matchup. And there was one game where I drew about 10 cards with Of One Mind. Sometimes it's just a very, very powerful card to recur with Eternal Witness. Since I'm trying to combo out with this build, having a card that accelerates the rate at which we can sort of plow through the deck has just felt really strong. So I'm pretty high on the card. I'm not sure if McDerp saw enough evidence in the matches that he was able to join us for. But I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know if any of you guys have opinions. Please feel free. Now's the time to sort of let me know if you think I'm running too few of a card or too much of a card. I had sort of tweaked this deck to be prepared to play against Teferi's Trickery. Fortunately, we did bump into them only once, though, in round 1. And obviously, the forces felt great. The Teferis felt great. And I didn't draw any Deafening Silences, but that's what they're there for. So I'm totally prepared for that matchup. I want to see it as much as possible. I feel like we just kind of manhandle them. And yeah, Uro's been awesome, helped us beat Burn. Even the Singleton Soulherder just really applied pressure to Boggles, helped draw a lot of cards, generated a lot of value. It can just be a serious threat. I won a game a little while ago against Heliod combo where they played a Hushbringer on turn 2. They must have like mulliganed to it thinking that it would just beat me. And then they just played sort of garbage cards for the next like 5 turns. Like they didn't really have the combo. And, you know, I just played another creature. I played Soulherder and then played another creature. And then I just kept bouncing the creature every single turn. Soulherder just grew. And that's it. I didn't get any value. And I beat the Heliod combo deck just by attacking with Soulherder. It was like really absurd. So having like a beefy threat that generates value serves as a 5th bounce engine or blink engine to help us establish the combo has just proven itself to be pretty strong. So I've been very happy with the Singleton Soulherder, even though I don't have like tutor spells to go grab this Singleton. This build is very much not a tutor-oriented deck. So McDerp is saying, I saw the 2 aggro decks, but Skyclave was the best. Yeah, Skyclave is pretty awesome there, for sure. I still haven't, again, I've been winning a lot with the deck. You don't want to just necessarily justify everything by saying that, you know, it's been helping you win games. But I think I'm 80% over the last 4 leagues, if I did the math correct. 4-1, 3-2, 4-1, 5-0. And I haven't really felt like I need additional Skyclave apparitions. They come up about exactly as often as I want them to. I can sideboard them out against like Tybalt's Treasury, since they don't really run anything. Why am I saying Treasury? I'm so tired. Trickery. So again, I feel pretty solid with the 2 Skyclaves. I appreciate the suggestion, but it's sort of similar to why I'm not running like main deck paths. Is that this build in particular has been more oriented towards ramping and getting to the sort of payoff spells than it has been about really like worrying about individual creatures. SkyApp is so flexible that you definitely want some number in your main deck, and it's extremely powerful with Ephemerate. But back when I was running 4 of them, I just drew too many of them, and they were not always good. Like against Tron, not very good. There's other decks against certain control decks, but it's actually tends to be fairly good against control because you get to kill their planeswalkers. But I'm just going to leave it at the idea that I don't feel at this moment like I really need more of them. I guess McDerp might say that I should trim the of one mines and replace them with 2 Skyclave apparitions, and could be totally correct. I'd be interested to get more people's opinions. I know that Alicia has been playing with Of One Mind extensively, and she's really, really high on the card. Honestly, McDerp, if you want to try out Of One Mind and see how it feels for you, I don't know if you're on Hierarchs or what kind of build you're running right now, but it's felt great. Alicia's been playing it, and she loves it as well. So I'm gonna keep with it for the time being. I like having this like four of with the combo. It's heavier than any sort of combo version I've run in the past. It's just very powerful. Cryptic is great. Time Warp is great. I have a lot of game 1s against like aggro decks where I'm able to slow them down, and then I even just like Time Warp combo in game 1. I'll take it out in game 2 and game 3 because it's too slow against some of those decks. But it's not always just dead against aggro decks. It actually gets there like surprisingly often. Well, anyhow, long stream, really fun league, some very exciting Magic. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining me. If you want to donate to the channel, there's a link below under the About tab. If you want to subscribe or follow, I always appreciate that. It helps me grow the channel. I'm going to be switching my second stream in the week to Friday, I think. Friday morning, late morning, Eastern time, or potentially early afternoon. Thursday used to be my day off, but now Friday is going to be my day off. So if any of you guys want to see some more Soulherder, I'll be playing live Friday right around noon, probably. Whether a little before, a little after, it'll be sometime around the middle of the day. So once again, thanks very much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you guys.